up, y'all? Kofi Kingston here, and I would love to have a drink with Wrestling on the Rocks, depending on what that drink is, preferably non-alcoholic, you know?
How's it going, Celtic Warrior Damon?
Soda.
I would love to have a drink with Wrestling on the Rocks.
Maple syrup.
Fella.
I would never have a drink with Wrestling on the Rocks.
Welcome to the dive bar of the IWC. Welcome to Wrestling on the Rocks, where every show is our first show, and we are your drinking buddies. I'm at Ref Marsh. We are at WOTR, the show. With me today, for the first time ever, on an episode 1 debut, it's Kismet. We have PW Front Row. Say hello, Front Row.
Hey, what's up, man?
What are the odds? You debut on a first episode. It's crazy.
Hey, it's an honor to be on your debut episode, and not many people could say that.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's... But well, it's episode 1. No one's been able to say it, I think.
Right. I mean, let's go. I mean, full disclosure, you and I have a heated rivalry that goes back decades, I think. So this is going to be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this will be the destruction of it. This is a little bit like Thanos and Tony Stark sitting down to have a talk. I feel like.
Who snaps first?
Yeah, exactly. Who's going to snap first? Let's see, in the chat already, we have a specifically devoid. We got Mike in there says, hey, Marsh, thanks for helping out on Saturday. Yeah, I did a watch-along for Royal Rumble, and now we are here to break down the hits and misses and fallouts thereof of the Royal Rumble. So it'll be good. Let's see. Let's start out with something simple, something easy. Front Row, what's in your glass? What are you drinking?
Just Coke Zero tonight. I'll probably break out some moonshine later on to watch Dynamite, but I'm going 0-calorie caffeine tonight.
Oh yeah, I'm on the keto train, so I do 0-calorie or 0 sugar everything, low calorie stuff. And in honor of you coming from North Carolina, what I refer to as North Carolina sweet tea, I got sweet tea and rum. But I found a 0 sugar sweet tea. So sponsored, not sponsored, by Gold Peak sugar-free sweet tea.
Oh, yeah, they have that here all over the place.
Really?
Yeah. My wife drinks that. No sugar.
It's amazing. It's amazing. They use monk fruit. Monk fruit is so sweet. If they tell you to use, like, if you're substituting it, to use, like, half of the sugar you would use. It's sweeter than sugar.
And the thing that bothers me the most is when people confuse sugar-free with no sugar added.
Yes.
Like, no sugar added means there's already sugar in it. We just didn't put any more in. Sugar-free means there isn't any.
Yes. But no sugar added could mean a low enough sugar content that it's still keto-friendly in the keto world. So I always look for the no sugar addeds just to read the label. But, yeah, you decide after the fact. No sugar added does not mean 0 sugar.
Yeah, so just like the dirt sheets, do your research.
Yeah, absolutely. Verify. But... just like the dirt sheets, a lot of those labels will make it up as they go, say something's keto-friendly, and it's really borderline. You're like, it's sort of, I mean, it's in quotes keto-friendly. They'll do it, just to get my keto tangent that I do every episode. They do this thing where they figure out what's the maximum amount of carbs and sugar you can have in a keto diet, and as long as it's that or below, they'll mark it as keto-friendly, meaning that you can't have a single gram more of sugar or carbs in the rest of your day, which onesie-twosies is how we live in ketos. You know what I mean? 2 grams of sugar, good to go. 4 grams of carbs, good to go. But if you give me a 16 gram of carbs to start with and say, look, keto-friendly, like I'm fucking tough. It's tough for the rest of the day. You know? It's a lot of celery after that.
It's keto-friendly if you have a quarter of a serving.
Yeah. Which I have done too. On some of the snacks I've had, which are a little borderline, I'll take them to work and split them with somebody at work. They can't have half of this. Because otherwise I'm not counting right. Just in Time coming through the chat saying cheers to everyone. Just in Time with his In Time Wrestling podcast. Still new, still good. Cheers to you. I did his intro and outro and I love it. I did it Vader time style. So good. Makes me laugh. Real quick, and then we'll get into it. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Flow State Coffee Flow State Coffee is a specialty grade coffee with L-theanine and raw cacao for creativity and productivity. Gives you better energy, focus, and mood than a regular cup of coffee while decreasing negative side effects like jitters, crash, anxiety, blood pressure, all them things. If you guys go to newwave.co, NOOWAVE.co, and put in promo code CHEERS, and get an additional 10% off anything they got going on over there, including deals they already have at Stacks. So shout out to New Wave. Well, let's talk a little bit about the news before we get into content. Mojo made an announcement yesterday that he will be returning to wrestling when he's good and ready. He's been battling COVID and the side effects thereof for about 19 months, and that's why he seemed really absent. I know he started doing stuff with TMZ, which was cool. We secretly wanted to be part of XFL when that launches. We'll see how that goes. There's still time. But he has announced he's not done with wrestling. He's not retired from it. He's just not conditioned for it because of the side effects of COVID, and he's planning on making his return. What do you think, Front Row?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because 19 months puts him squarely, well before vaccination and all that. So, he wouldn't have had the benefit of that additional protection. So he get hit hard with like the OG real serious strain, right? And I think it just goes to prove like a guy like him in like absolute peak health, just a monster of an athlete can still succumb to it. So, I definitely feel for the guy. I hope he recovers. There are people that have that long-term COVID where the side effects just take years to go away or forever to go away. But he's such a freak athlete. He'll probably shake this thing and be back in no time. I think the conversation really is going to be around where does he show up when he is fully recovered? There's so many opportunities out there right now, whether it's the big companies, the independents. We look at a guy like Matt Cardona, who's proven you don't have to be in WWE to have a 7-figure year, right? You can really make a name for yourself across multiple platforms if you're creative enough. And I think that's really going to be on Mojo to figure that out. Like, how can he rebrand himself to make him a marketable, multi-platform wrestler?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting and fascinating also because unlike Zack Ryder, prior to Matt Cardona, Zack Ryder was always listed as underappreciated and underutilized, always a great talent that just wasn't quite there and always beloved in all those ways. Mojo doesn't have that benefit. He wasn't a crowd favorite in that regard. He wasn't ever seen that way. He was always seen as a second. So I think he's got a lot to prove and a chip on his shoulder, and I think he's going to prove it. Like, I feel like, personally, I felt he was underrated. I feel like I can listen to that guy interview all day. He is so inspirational and motivational, and he's got such a good attitude. He's never blamed anyone for anything that's ever gone wrong in his life. He's just seen it as another opportunity to work a little bit harder. I got to meet him once and talk to him about that, and we talked for a while about his mindset and all that stuff. And I think that because he doesn't get to come in with the benefit of the fan favor in that regard, it opens up more of the floor for him. Cardona could step into proving what everyone already suspected. Mojo gets to step into proving everybody wrong and showing that he's had that the whole time. Because honestly, from his first match to his last match, the differences between each match were very noticeable to me.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too that Cardona didn't have that Mojo does have is, unfortunately, Mojo's been sick, but as a silver lining, if there is anything, he has an enormous amount of time for long-term planning and to really put his strategy together. And Mojo's a smart dude. Like, I've met him too, and if you ever have like his conversations out of character, like, I mean, he holds an MBA, like, he's a bright guy. I think he's going to figure out a way to dial into the current 2022 climate when he's ready. But yeah, I think he just has he has a lot more time than other people who need to get right back out there in a hurry and get to work. Like, so I hope he's been able to utilize that time, at least during the pockets when he wasn't feeling terrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a huge thing, a huge benefit that a lot of the talent do get is time to make those plans and to put that stuff together, which kind of brings me into the next topic. Just briefly, I don't think we need to really beat the horse on this one, but there's a whole lot of talent that was released and their contracts are up and they are now officially ready to go out onto the market and do whatever they want. I just, because I've brought it up before, to me, it is so weird and awkward and disheartening when I see a lot of these talent, as soon as their contracts are up or released or the non-competes become conversation, they go in real heavy with prison metaphors, slavery metaphors, and I think that from someone who's worked in prisons for a lot of years, I don't feel that there's a connection there. From an artist and creator perspective and content creator, and I've been an artist since I was a kid and always created. I can understand feeling stifled in your voice. I can understand feeling stifled in your creativity. I can understand the frustration therein. But again, seeing the inside of a prison, I don't think it's the most tasteful way to go about it, and it really offsets my excitement for them, and I just kind of wish they would stop.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that's not an apt analogy, but I also agree with your point where if you're a talented creative person, you're an artist, you are someone who wants to get out there and tell stories. If you sit in catering for 6 months, you get real frustrated as an artist. You get real frustrated as a creative brain. And especially if you're someone like an Ali who keeps throwing ideas out there, making his own content, doing everything he can to try to, bring his brand of sports entertainment to the table, and they keep saying no. I can see why people like that feel imprisoned isn't the right term, but maybe trapped in some way. Obviously, the catering's much better than prison food, but you do that week after week after week. And I've spoken to talents who go to work, who go to catering every week and are like, what am I doing? Like, I get here and they don't use me and I go home. Like, what's all this travel for? Like, please use me in a meaningful way. So I totally get that. And when people leave and they have the opportunity to really stretch their legs creatively, it's awesome. However, as Tommy Dreamer would say, there is a caveat to that. WWE pays a shitload of money. You're not going to go work for MLW and make 7 figures. At least I don't think so. I don't know their business model, but I suspect, right? It's not the same pay structure.
Yeah.
However, if you've made your money in WWE and you have a nice nest egg and you want to go be creative for 5 years, there's a lot of opportunity there. And, Matt Cardona has really proven that. He's one of those guys that's proven it. We were at the NWA tapings and the pay-per-view in December, and I get a chance to talk to him very briefly, but we saw him up close. And this dude is like the most likable, nice, super energetic guy. But when he gets in there, he's a prick. Like, he's really good at his job, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, with his resume. So for other talents that have left the company, whether it's voluntarily or not, it's going to be interesting to see where they show up. I mean, there's a lot of rumors swirling around about tonight's Dynamite, which, rumor and innuendo being what it is. So I'm going to be interested to see. But I wanted to ask you, because, of course, if you look online, okay, my favorite wrestler's not being treated right in WWE. They have to go to AEW. You go, well, they already have a bloated roster for the most part. They do need help at the top of the women's division, and we can have that conversation separately. But where else do you see people having success that could possibly pay them remotely the same kind of money?
The thing is, from what I've heard too, I think as much as AEW can pay, I think that they're scaling back on what they are paying people coming in, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were closer to an MLW style. Well, I know MLW, I saw an interview recently about their pay structure, specifically with people inside the company. They kind of lowball you the first year, but as you prove yourself, they'll build you up. And Hammerstone even went on record to say that before his first contract was up, they'd already bumped his pay. Before that contract was up, they'd already bumped his pay. That as you prove your worth to them as a company and your loyalty and value to them, that they're willing to rise that. I mean, it does, but it does. Is there any chance MLW is paying as much as AEW? I don't think so. But I feel like that it becomes personal branding at that point. Matt Cardona is making a lot of money because of Major Wrestling Pod. He's making a lot of money because of his pro wrestling tees, because of those things. He's using all those indie promotions to help bolster what he's doing and where to buy his merch effectively. You know what I mean? So I think it becomes like you need your own shop. And I mean, I don't participate in pro wrestling tees anymore, and we've moved on over to Teespring. And if you go to wrestlingonrocks.com/shop, you can go straight there and check out our new coffee mugs and pint glasses and all that. But it seems that most of these talent at this point will be making their money outside of that. I mean, even I'm starting to wonder more about the AEW structure in general when you see someone like Marina Shafir get a T-shirt on AEW shop, but no announcement that she's ever been signed. Yeah. So at that point, is it like, hey, we're going to help you design a shirt, but we're going to take a little bit more off the top than you would if it was just in your own shop? Like, it's starting to become a little bit blurry, I think, where before it looked a lot more clear as to what was happening, especially when they all had their own pro wrestling sites. But I don't know where you could go to just make that kind of a money. But I think it's also where they come from. A lot of these talent who start saying things like, it's not about the money, there's more important things than money, is a comfortable thing that rich people say. Because it is no longer about the money. Yeah. But I've been in jobs that have killed my soul. My last job, I don't know if people have even paid notice to this, but in the past 6 months, I've lost 67 pounds, almost 70 pounds. Yeah, a lot. Because my health has become so different, because I was stuck in a job that was not only creatively crushing, but it took every energy I had. I couldn't even come home and create or draw or even do things on my own. I was just so exhausted with existence and dreading the next step. But I couldn't leave it for years. I was there for years, and I couldn't leave it because we were a one-income house most of the time. Fast forward, my girlfriend gets her master's degree. She's now my sugar mama, and things are well. But when people say these things or have these attitudes like they're in a prison and they're stuck and it's not about money and I want out, it creates a massive disconnect to me, because I've been in those situations where I cannot leave that job because I will not have a place to live. And when you comfortably sit there in your probably reasonably sized house, I'm not going to say they'll have mansions by any means, but you're in a comfortable house, comfortable living situation with a family and kids that you're not afraid of being able to support, I feel a massive disconnect immediately when they're trying to get me to jump on their bandwagon. It pushes me out of it. You know what I mean?
Well, there's two different points there, right? And I think both points are actually correct. When someone says your health, your happiness is more important than money, you hear that. And if you're not financially stable, you hear that and you go, well, that's bullshit because I need the money. However, the fact is that all of those things are negatively impacted by a shitty job. Yeah. So if you have the ability to get out of your situation, and I hate that term, gamble on yourself, but it really is true. Like in this case, take a chance. Now you have to do the homework, you have to do the legwork to prepare yourself for the next stage. You can't just quit your job and then pick up your iPad and go, what do I do now? But you have to have a plan, right? You have to have some idea of what you're going to do next. That happened to me last year when I left. I was doing some contract work and I wasn't happy there. And my wife said, your happiness is more important. Like, you're marketable. We'll figure it out. And we did. So I didn't stick with that company. I went and worked for, a different company, and it worked out. But it does tend to be more in the financially stable people who advise you to not worry about it. Yeah, those are the same people on House Hunters that knit for a living and buy $2 million homes.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree too. But I mean, in defense of the creative, when I quit my job, I did not have a plan. All I knew was that I couldn't keep moving forward, and we were going to be able to scrape by the next couple of years while we figured it out. We'd saved enough and such. So my plan was banking on that I could make something happen. And luckily, I started working with X-Pac on his podcast for a while, which once he stopped that, it leveraged me into helping out John Arezzi with his podcast, and now I'm helping Wrestling Inc. with their YouTube. And I've been able to, literally, by picking up my iPad and going, what the fuck am I going to do with what I know how to do, was able to leverage it into these things. But I knew it was going to be a struggle, and it still is a struggle, but it's keeping us floating, and there is that. But to circle back to your other question, I really feel like AEW and WWE are the only two places that you can make that kind of money, and that the people who are thriving like the Matt Cardonas are people who, like you said, have the nest egg to take a chance. There's a lot of people who are not able to take that chance, and I think that the next couple of years are going to be really interesting. Does NWA? I mean, so far as I've even heard, and I know you're a little bit more familiar with their product, but I remember hearing an interview even with like Nick Aldis where their pay structure seems pretty slanted, and
So I'm not in those discussions, but what I understand from what has been made public is they have a core group of people who are who are contracted, which is very limited. There's only a handful of people, and then they do contract work, which is essentially they hire someone to come in for their taping weekend, which is a great opportunity because you work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and now you're on TV for 3 months.
yeah, that's
So you work 4 days and you get 3 months worth of TV exposure, or whatever you want to call TV. They have a much broader audience now than they did a month ago. But so that's what they call that as a rolling contract. It's a 3-month rolling contract. I think that there are some restrictions to what you can do during the time that your episodes are airing, but I don't know that. I've just heard some rumor. Like I don't have a copy of the contracts,
yeah,
but
well, for sure. I don't even understand
and then
contracts if I did.
yeah, exactly. And there are those people who can only appear for like 2 days of the show.
Yeah.
Like, well, okay, well, you're only on half the season, you can't come in. Like, so, I will tell you, and this is public, like they're doing their thing in March, and it's Crockett Cup Saturday, Sunday, Power tapings Monday, Tuesday, and USA taping Wednesday. That's 20 hours of wrestling. More than that, actually. And it's a lot. I mean, it makes financial sense because you get all of your talent in one place. You get as much content as you can possibly get. You know, I've been there. I've seen them working hard morning, noon, and night to put that stuff together. But as a fan, you get kind of burnt out. So I'm concerned about that schedule adversely affecting their in-house response.
I wonder, because I know that you've been to a lot more tapings than I have, and I was only at the one, but they do tape out of order.
No,
So
well, they didn't the last 2 times. So
okay.
When I was there in June, there was only a handful of us that were invited. They were still not bringing big crowds back. So there was like 12 or 13 of us. And because we were downstairs in the basement, COVID protocols were very strictly enforced. Once you sat down, you could take your mask off, but you had to be escorted everywhere.
Yeah.
So it was completely taped out of order. They taped Sunday, they taped Saturday, and the stuff they taped on Saturday were storylines that were results of the Sunday pay-per-view. So we knew who had won on Saturday before the pay-per-view happened live on Sunday. And then Monday and Tuesday were taken out of order too. They were doing that Champion Series, and all the matches were out of order. They had baby faces and heels on each team. We didn't know who to boo and who to cheer. It was very confusing.
You're like, we're trying our best here, but you gotta help.
Well, I mean, to the point where like we're friendly with Lady Frost. So when she came out, she had just had a match where she was a heel, and we booed her, and she leaned over and she says, "Oh, you gotta cheer me." I'm like, yay! I'm like, I don't know, whatever. But then we were
the applause signs. Old school.
To their credit, we went to the St. Louis, and St. Louis was taped all in order. The Empower 73 pay-per-views back to back, and then the Power tapings after. All the stories were in order, and it made total sense if you were in the room. Which they also in December was also the same thing. So it's much better now. But that one experience was very harrowing as a fan.
I think so. I mean, it's possible that if they decide to tape it in such a way, they could split up the low energy of the crowd. You know what I mean? Like tape things towards the end that may be easier to give someone's energy a rise. So that way, like people who are like, because I mean, fan fatigue is so real, and if you're asking for 4 days of intense energy, that is a lot to put on any given fan. Even WWE with the 2-day WrestleManias have reduced the time frame on the WrestleMania, so it's like 2, 3, or 4 hour days instead of 1 9-hour day.
Well, and to compound this, on when we were there last time, the Sunday and Monday tapings were double shots. They were 2 4-hour sets each day.
Yeah,
double sets of tapings each day.
Yeah. No, I don't know, man. Well, let's hit up these last two things because one of them's popping up in our chat. But before that one, just for sake of interestingness, the other thing that's going out around right now is that Shane McMahon was quietly let go from the WWE, and I just couldn't help but laugh at the whole thing because how it plays out, because I live my life in kayfabe, is Shane shows up at the Rumble, which, by the way, his entrance was weird. I didn't know if anybody else caught this, but he didn't come from the back. He came from the side.
Mm-hmm.
There's that little walkway that everyone was coming through with the things like coming through Gorilla. He came through the side, off to the from the right hand side, or depending on left, and then runs up, and he just seemed like not excited. I remember thinking like, "Oh, this is cool, he's back," but he just had this look like, "All right, I better go out there," and it was weird. But he goes in there. He has the Rumble. I thought it was cool. I wonder if this means we're going to get to a Mania match with Shane. We didn't see anything for him on Raw. But before he came out on Raw, all these dirt sheets came out with, here's these long-term plans for Shane McMahon. They're going to be doing these things. All I thought was it'd be cool to see Shane and Austin Theory. But now they're saying he's quietly let go, and all the dirt sheets are jumping on it as he was let go. And I just wonder if maybe, ultimately, he just was going to be a one-time appearance at Rumble. They got in front of themselves, stepped over their own footing, and then when they said, yeah, there's no real plans for moving forward, they're like, oh, he must not be with the company. But he's not just a talent. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, he's a share owner. Like, he's a corporate executive there.
Yeah.
He's not like, the guy that's on 205 Live that we don't need anymore.
Yeah.
So there's a couple pieces to this, right? First of all, the dirt sheets are reporting that they're not sure where he's going to wrestle next. I'm like, he's not a wrestler. He's a corporate leader.
AEW.
I can see him on Dark Elevation trying to put somebody over, right?
Oh, yeah.
My take is if he's left the company under whatever circumstances, then he's probably going to go start another company. I mean, that's what he does. He's done it successfully before when he was away from the company, when he was away from WWE. And he's independently wealthy. He could just not do anything. Yeah. So that's not his
which he's also done.
Right.
But he has done that for periods of time. Like, one of the times he left, he went and started a company, made it successful. Another time we didn't see him on TV for a long time, and the reports, rumors, whatever, were that he wasn't helping backstage. He was just at home spending time with his family. He can do whatever he wants.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the likelihood is that he was probably gearing down towards the end of his contract for TV and for some of the work that he was doing there, and maybe he just wants to go do other stuff. He's still a share owner. He's still going to be in a position of influence there. It's not like he's going to go work for the competition. My guess is he probably won't do anything in wrestling because he has experience outside of that through, broadcasting other TV venues and marketing and stuff like that. It's entirely possible that his contract was just up and he's like, yeah, I don't really want to do this anymore. Yeah. Who knows? I doubt very much that there was a big screaming match backstage in Gorilla and he left, because that would have been everywhere. Like, that's not the type of thing you can hide.
Yeah. Well, and even then, some of that shit gets made up to begin with. Like the whole Bailey Sasha after Mania stuff. Time and time again.
Oh, the crying on the floor thing? Yeah.
Yeah. That apparently never happened. Even the people who reported that it happened has apologized since for saying that they shouldn't have reported it because it didn't happen. And you're like, fuck. But, yeah, I just think it'll be exciting when Tony Khan announces his son and Shane McMahon comes out and they start a whole new kayfabe line. And he does one half of his face like Darby Allin, and he's fights Sting for the custody of baby Darby. It'll be good.
I mean, I'm hoping to see him face Hook. So Hook is with the match. That's the match everybody wants to see. Shane and Hook.
Hold on, go ahead and repeat that for me.
I said Hook is the match that everybody wants to see. Shane and Hook.
Shane?
Yeah.
Yeah, Battle of the Legacy. Or what was the name of the team? Was it Legacy, where it was Orton and Dollar Man's son, and remember they had the whole team of
Ted DiBiase Jr.
Yeah. And there was
I think you're right. I think Legacy. That sounds right.
Kurt Henning's kid. The three of them, and it was like Legacy. You could start that in AEW with Taz's kid, Vince's kid. -1 could be their manager. And it basically writes itself. It's pretty solid. Call themselves the future of wrestling. Basically like Evolution, but, with Shane.
Yep.
The other thing is that Brian Kendrick has been announced for AEW Dynamite, but in the chat, Jeremy In Time does say, I don't know if you guys have heard, but Brian Kendrick was just pulled from his match tonight against Jon Moxley due to comments resurfacing made by Brian Kendrick. He said pretty horrid things. I saw the clip, and to me, it was kind of a weird.
I also, and I'm not an apologist, like if he said those things, even if it was a go, shame on him. But I also saw some commentary that was done as like a character piece, but I don't know what the context of it was.
It was specifically cut in such a way where it was contextless. I mean, again, I'm not an apologist either, but I saw it and I was like, this is some really weird, wild stuff to be saying. But without context, it doesn't mean as much, especially when you're talking about performers and actors.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it is a little tough to say, and I don't know any of it. The other thing I think is really weird, as just a side quest, the amount of people who look into people's lives to discover whether or not they can enjoy something on TV. I'm not saying that assholes shouldn't be outed and that people shouldn't want to work with people who are shitty, but there does seem to be this huge push where someone will watch something and their response is not, did I enjoy what I watched as I watched it? It was, let me research these people and dig down to find out if I enjoyed what I saw. Like, people can't just take things for what they are. I don't know. If he said a thing 10 years ago that was stupid, but he hasn't said it in 10 years, I don't know if that makes me give a shit at all about his wrestling one way or the other. I think his wrestling is what it is. Am I way off base on this one?
No, and I think, like, we talk about giving people the opportunity to learn and grow, but we really don't want them to. We want them to fail, and then we're going to enjoy the redemption story. We don't care if they grow. We just want to see them climb back up the ladder, but only at the pace in which we ascribe to be correct.
Yes.
So I look at a guy like this, and I'm like, I've never seen anything in all the years I've been watching him, all the people that I see tweet about him. I've never seen this clip, and I've never heard a bad thing about him. Everybody seems to like the guy. Yep. This comes out, and all of a sudden he's enemy number one. I don't know, like we talk about whether it's politics or any of the stuff that you see on the news. Like, I need more information before I can base my own opinion on this. It's weird because and what makes things further complicated is that in wrestling, like we talk about with, our friend Sam, like new kayfabe is a thing. Mm-hmm. So if you want to get heat, you go on social media and you weave these stories that people aren't sure what's real and what isn't, and then that also gives people the out to say, well, I was just a character. I didn't really mean that,
Yeah, it's muddy. And at the same time, like, the way support happens nowadays is also kind of weird. Like, let's say he said that and meant it 10 years ago. Let's say he's still not sure if he believes that today, or maybe he does, but he hasn't said anything about it in 10 years. I guess what it falls down to is that I think it was worded really perfectly in this movie that's one of my all-time favorites, called The United States of Leland, where this guy mentions another character who's a writer and goes, have you read his work? And the person said, no, that guy's a monster. And he said, what? He goes, no, but have you read his books? And they're all like, I wouldn't read his books because he's an asshole. And he goes, yeah, he's a total bastard, but that doesn't mean he can't create good works. He says, you have to separate the art from the artist. I think that there's a very real conversation of, can someone who's a shitty person put out something that's otherwise inspiring, beneficial, or good? I also don't have to buy the book to read the book. I don't have to buy this guy's t-shirt for him to have a squash match on Dynamite with Mox. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand, like, the drive and push to, like you said, I understand accountability. I think redemption's a very real, concept, and accountability without a possible redemption is not accountability, it's a witch hunt. And that's my biggest problem with a lot of those conversations, is it goes, they did this, so fuck them forever. And you go, well, Kenny learning it better? Nope. There are some crimes and such that I believe are not redeemable, but those are crimes. and they're not likely to be going around in Hollywood if they had committed a crime of those natures. It just seems weird. You know what I mean?
I do. So like I take for example, like the Bill Cosby stuff is cut and dry. Like it's been proven that he was guilty of all these crimes, right?
Yeah.
So like terrible human, all this stuff. I still think Bill Cosby himself is one of the greatest stand-ups of all time. I have trouble enjoying it today, but that doesn't mean that I still don't have fond memories of watching it when I was younger. I can appreciate the fact that he created great art in the ago time. But if he were to release a movie today, you know, if something were to come out, content that would put money in his pocket, yeah, I'm not supporting that. But
That's true.
I'm also not, and I guess this is a whole other conversation, but it seems like there's no gradient, there's no scale. There's zero and the nuclear option. The nuclear option is anytime someone steps out of line with whatever the Twitter mob describes as incorrect, they should get canceled and destroyed and never seen from again. Like, okay, well, someone said something stupid. Maybe that was a long time ago. Maybe it was last week. They can learn and grow, whatever. Show me that. And this is the argument that people always have, you know, not to get too like on this, but the argument with the Hulk Hogan stuff is, you know, you hear people like Mark Henry publicly say, well, he hasn't done the work to apologize properly. Like, I don't feel like he's legitimately done the work necessary to make the apologies to the community. So me as a fan, I go, all right, well, I respect his opinion more than my own in this case.
Yeah.
His opinion carries more weight than mine, so I will listen to that. But I don't know the guy. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know Hulk Hogan.
That's a really good point too. The amount of people who are getting canceled for seemingly defending someone who did a thing, where, like you said, they may have more context as to why they're feeling that way to begin with. On the flip side, go ahead.
I saw someone get canceled just for liking a tweet recently.
Yeah. Someone sent me something because a musician that I like was like, so I support Britney Spears and the Free Britney thing, and I think it's all crazy. Well, then I was sent something recently online where they're like, look at this other musician you like doesn't follow Britney on Instagram, but follows Jamie Lynn Spears. How can you possibly support that person? And I was all like, what?
Like, I don't know, it's just music.
Yeah, I was like, I like the music. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know if following someone on Instagram is indictable or otherwise. Like, it seemed really weird. I was like, we're really going around to figure out who follows who, and that is also condemnable. And that's a step past accountability. You know what I mean? Case in point, recently was brought up by you that I was following somebody I thought I wasn't, and you said, do you realize you're still following them? No, I did not. Fixed. How many people do we follow and not follow that we are just unaware of to make it actually like, look at, they're not following the right person. They're evil. It's just weird. I don't know. Sometimes here in the dive bar, because we are the dive bar of the IWC, we take the IWC to task at times. But at the end of the day, it's just because we're trying to have a drink and have a conversation. Micah brings up Cody was also in Legacy. I wonder what ever happened to him.
I don't know.
Let's hit up one more thing before we talk about Rumble. And I know we're dragging, but it's just a good conversation. That's the whole point of this. I just want to have the conversation. Mission Pro had a really big show just like last weekend. Yeah,
it's crazy. It's called Crazy Train. It was an exciting show, and you know, our show, The Nation's Corner, we're big sponsors. We actually contracted, you know, partners with them now. And for those that saw, we have our new turnbuckle pads that were on display through the whole pay-per-view, which is really cool. So thanks to Melanie and Brian and Thunder and everybody over there at Mission Pro. But the show is interesting because Holidead was supposed to defend her title against La Rosa Negra, her Mission Pro Wrestling title. Holidead got injured, like sort of last minute, I think. I don't really know when the injury happened, but so they had to sort of reconfigure the show a little bit and figure out what they were going to do. So if you're going to take something away from the fans, whether it's their injury, you give them something bigger. Yep. So who shows up and steps up? But Thunder Rosa. Thunder steps up and defends her Warrior Wrestling title against La Rosa in the main event. And my God, like we know how good Thunder is. Like, I don't think enough people give credit to La Rosa Negra for being a veteran of close to 20 years, maybe. She's been around a long time, and she's an outstanding professional wrestler. And you go back and watch that match from this weekend, and they beat the shit out of each other. It was like, it was beyond just two people who are good. It was friends who were like, okay, we're gonna deliver on for our fans, and it's gonna just tear the house down. And wow, if you have Title Match Network, go back and watch it because it was awesome. There was
All
there
those
was a
shows
lot
are
of good
super
stuff.
affordable. All those shows are way affordable. And we've touted them a lot. MissionProWrestling.net get you to Title Match Network, and you can jump in there because we sponsored their first pay-per-view. We were very happy about that and excited. And real close to after that is when I quit my job, and I was like, this is timing's not quite right. So as business picks up, so if you guys want to give us a little tip jar, go to WrestlingRocks.com, donate. If we make enough, we'll sponsor them again. I swear to God.
Well, we're
But
fortunate because the Busted Open Nation really, like, they contribute as a group every month, so we're able to do the turnbuckle sponsorship. It's not just one or two people; it's a whole group of people. But interestingly enough, like we had JP Harlow on recently, and he's one of the few guys that wrestles at Mission Pro. And you know, Thunder's perspective is, for years, women would have the only match on the card, and it was always like a dark match or whatever. So they do the reverse. They have a whole women's show, and they have one sort of pre-show or dark match with the men. Well, they ended up doing a fatal four-way with JP Harlow and Kari Wright and Ricardo Rodriguez and Ninja Mac. For GCW fans, Ninja Mac is like one of my favorites, man. Ninja Mac is super exciting. He's all over the place. He's in like a ton of different promotions right now, but GCW faithful will definitely know Ninja Mac.
Do you know his history?
Very little. No, I only know him from the pay-per-views.
So strangely and interestingly enough, he was a part of Cirque du Soleil, but never crossed paths with Reggie. They don't know each other.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
But that's why he's so good at the hyper athleticism and flips and such that he is so good at. Because I remember I saw him in LA a few months back at GCW, and I was at my first GCW show, and I was like, this dude's like precise with his flips. It's crazy. Once I found out he had a Cirque du Soleil background, I went, oh, it'd be weird if he didn't.
Yeah, no doubt. But my favorite match on the...
Just a quick shout out to Ninja Mac. We love him. He's a bit of a friend of the show. He popped up in our chat one week, just randomly. And I was like, okay. Just goes to show you don't know who's listening, when, or why, but they're out there, guys. What else?
So the only other... So there's a lot of stuff, but the other match that was my actual favorite match of the night was a tag team title match. And it was the Renegade Twins defending against Kelsey Reagan and Viva Van. The Renegade Twins are really good, and they're like 20 or 21 years old. They're very young. And, you know, they're being trained by some pretty high-profile people right now. Yeah. More to come later. I think that they're going to be huge soon. In the next year or two, they're going to be in a position to really make big names for themselves because they're super talented. They have old school tag team chemistry as actual twins, obviously, but they train together, they compete together, and they currently hold the CCW and Mission Pro titles. So they're twins 2 belts currently. So they're going to be part of all this stuff. The only other thing I wanted to mention about Mission Pro, and I know we got a lot of stuff to cover, is this week they made the announcement that Mission Pro Wrestling will be part of the GCW Collective in April, on April 2nd. Woo! As a sponsor and as a friend of those folks, like, I couldn't be happier. Being part of the Collective is a massive deal, and they're going to be alongside, you know, Bloodsport and Effie's Big Gay Brunch and the GCW main shows, and there's a bunch of stuff that come along with that. Their pay-per-view that month is going to be called Bangers Only. And it's going to be exciting. We've seen some of the names announced for the card. I think the Hex were announced recently. Obviously, the Renegade Twins, all of the Mission Pro regulars will be there. So
explain
keep
to
your
the
eyes.
Hexes to some of our listeners, because
So
they know
the Hex,
I'm a WWE shill here, so a lot of people listen are big WWE
fans.
Oh,
sorry. So the Hex are the current. That's Marty Bell and Allison Kay are the current NWA Women's World Tag Team Champions. So they will be, I don't know if this is a title match. They haven't advertised actual matches, but they did announce that they would be part of the show, which is cool. It's this whole, like, we love seeing cross-promotional stuff. I love seeing companies play well with each other. Yeah. So this makes me happy.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's great. And I think anything that's GCW branded, the GCW presents in front of any show, gives it a level of credibility. Not to say that it would not be credible otherwise, right? But there's a certain level of, GCW's bringing this thing on. I will say that I was surprised. I do think GCW diehards will watch anything GCW presents. I don't know that it branches out quite super far yet, but I think that Thunder Rosa's face on a Mission Pro GCW presents thing will drive a bunch of traffic. I'm just saying in regards to having been in the arena for Bloodsport and then following GCW show after, I was shocked at how many people were not at both shows and how many people did not pack it for Bloodsport but did for the second night. And I didn't see a ton of people who were at both. Me and my brother were at one. I go to both, and I didn't see a ton of people who I recognized from the night before. And I was surprised because, man, Bloodsport is incredible. You know what I think if I were to talk about Bloodsport specific, I think being called Bloodsport is immediately off-putting to an entire sect of audience. Because I know when I took my brother... Go ahead.
No, I think that's a valid point, but I also think what that does is it draws in the people who really want to be part of it. Mm-hmm. You're drawing in the faithful, you're drawing in people. If you give it a sort of an innocuous name or some generic name, people aren't going to stay. They're going to come, they're going to look, they're going to go.
Yes.
Bloodsport has become synonymous with hard-hitting, like Josh Barnett, Bloodsport. Okay, I'm in. I know what that is. I know what that flavor of pro wrestling is. And whatever it is, I know it's going to be that. If I have a taste for Burger King, I better get a Whopper because that's what they're advertising.
But with a name like Bloodsport, if you don't know what it is, you don't know what it is. Because when I took my brother to it, he heard Bloodsport and he was messaging his friend and he goes, I think I'm going to a bunch of death matches and I'm not really excited about it, but I'm with my brother and I haven't seen him in a while. And when we go, no one bled the whole night. There wasn't a drop of blood in Bloodsport. It was a hard-hitting, like you said, matchup. And my brother loved it. By the end of it, he was losing his mind. Minoru Suzuki against Chris Dickinson was fucking killer. My brother and I could not get the smiles off our faces. And he started messaging his friend afterwards, being like, it was nothing like I thought it was going to be. And this might be the greatest show I've ever been to, you know? But yeah.
Well, and that's been my story all along with GCW because for a long time I was like, I don't really like blood. I don't like death matches. I'm not a death match guy. And then, Sam said to us one day, he's like, no, you really should check it out. And then he sent me a code to try it. He's like, just watch it and let me know what you think. Yeah. And I watched it and I was like, holy shit. Like there was one death match, but there was like 6 other incredible flavors of wrestling represented on this show. And it's cheap. Their pay-per-views are very reasonable and they're awesome. And we've had like our friend Trenda was at GCW recently out in California. And she said it was like ECW-esque. Like the crowd was rabid and insane. And like that, she was there when they were throwing all the shit at Fatu.
That crowd is one of the examples. So like there's 2 sides to crowds to me. The NXT crowd almost ruins the show for me every week. They have to be smarter than the show. They have to make sure you know how smart they are. They're going to chant Walter at Gunther regardless of his name. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow night on episode 1 with my boys Clump and Amanda Jane. We're going to talk about them doing that because I find it so disrespectful. The fact that they chant Uso at Solo Sikoa, so disrespectful. And it's not the only time we've ever seen in actual sports where someone changes their name and has had a disrespectful response. But that comes from a discussion we're going to have tomorrow night on episode 1. The flip side is the GCW audience, where I'm watching matches that as I'm watching it, I'm like, this is preposterous. This is ridiculous. I don't buy any of this. I know he's a fan favorite. You got Starboy Charlie suplexing Juicy Fanu. And I'm like, nope. I'm like, fuck that kid. And I'm cheering for Jacob Fatu and Juicy, and the crowd's booing him like, you guys are wrong. But even outside of that match, there's another match with a couple people flipping around so much that I just thought I was watching gymnastics to a sense. And I was like, this isn't really for me. I'm not digging this. But the crowd energy was such that I loved every second of it. They're so into it and they're so supportive of it that it made the show more enjoyable during matches that I wouldn't have otherwise enjoyed. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and it's interesting because the live experience differs from, with anything, the live experience differs from the at-home experience. But specifically with this type of a crowd, you can have 200 or 300 people have the energy of 5,000. Like, it just looks and feels like every move gets a reaction. Ron Funches comes out and everybody loses their shit. You know what I mean? Stuff like that happens. We saw, all the Team Bussy stuff. Like, that's ridiculous. You would never see that anywhere else, but it fits beautifully with their brand. Like, to my point, at the Hammerstein show at the World on GCW, you had a house full of pro wrestling fans, probably 20 to 35, 40, mostly male, singing at the top of their lungs, "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road." Like, that's an amazing thing. Like, I'm so glad we live in this world right now. And how cool is that? Because 20 years ago, they would have been shouting slurs at Rafi. And here we are. We've got, like, the hottest wrestling product pretty much on the independent scene. And he's a mainstay there. He's a cornerstone of everything they do.
Okay. I can appreciate that for sure. I personally don't care for cheap pop entrance musics. But it doesn't mean I don't appreciate some of the other stuff. I like that that's where your headspace is at for it, because that makes me like it more. One of the things, too, is I like seeing things that I know other people will like. Another NXT example, Wendy Chu. Not the biggest fan of that character, but our friend and drinking buddy on Thursdays, Miss Amanda Jane, loves Wendy Chu. So now when I see Wendy Chu do stuff that I think is just ridiculous, I can't help but laugh because I know that she's loving it, and that makes me happy, and it makes me enjoy it more. There's a guy out here who does a bunch of death matches. His name's Neil Diamond Cutter. He's started touring a lot more and more, but he's local, and he comes out to Sweet Caroline because for one, it's 100% different than a death match, but two, the crowd's already singing it because why wouldn't they sing it? So when I see Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, I go, okay, well, it's just another cheap pop entrance. But I can appreciate that your idea is that they're so into it and so willing to celebrate in a world where Pat Patterson had a story of him being in the ring with, I forget who it was, but they were yelling slurs at the other guy. And they're in a headlock, and Pat Patterson said, can you imagine if they only knew? Like, yeah. So
it's hard
in that regard, 100%.
It's hard because, my son and his boyfriend, he live here in Charlotte, and we had lunch with them today. And there are places that you still go today where they get looks, you hear the comments, and you got to go, what the fuck? It's 2022. Can we, like, get with the times a little bit? Like, so when I see something like that in, like, a pure pro wrestling environment where it is a very ECW feel, you're not getting the shit that the ECW people would have chanted at Effie and people like Effie, right? So whether you appreciate the entrance or not, I love the fact that that's happening today.
Yes, 100%. It's great. It's absolutely
the other thing I'll say about GCW real quick before we move on is it's interesting how the crowd has picked their favorites. They've picked people who are their GCW people. I mean, nobody more than Nick Gage, obviously. But when you see the Briscoes come out now, like, they've attached themselves to the Briscoes. When you see Thunder make her appearances in GCW, people lose their minds. They're like, oh, that's the person that fits with our brand. That's the person we want to see in the ring. When she was working with Lufisto and Paro in that pre-show match, the energy was off the charts.
Yes.
And she said later on, she's like, it's one of the most energetic responses I've ever gotten. And I've been in bigger buildings. So it's a credit to the GCW people and what they're building. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do this year.
Thunder Rosa showing up in GCW is very similar to Becky Lynch showing up on NXT, where it's their big one over there. Although the argument would then be that Becky Lynch is the top of her division on both sides and Thunder is not top of her division on both sides. I'm saying that I think that the reaction Becky gets from going to NXT like she did in the past is going to be equal in energy to Thunder Rosa showing up in GCW, and I will venture to say that Britt Baker showing up in GCW would not get the same energy that Thunder Rosa and GCW would get
No, I
because
would agree.
she's so identifiably part of them, their mantra. And what's great about Thunder Rosa on top of that, she's so openly not going to be a part of the WWE universe without being negative towards WWE. And that's a really strange balance to see nowadays. People either say fuck them and fuck everything they're about. She said, I almost signed with them. I'm glad I didn't. I don't see myself fitting in over there. And moves on. Like, she never goes on a limb to, like, or not on a limb, but she never goes out of her way to, like, shit on them as a company in any way. But she's so identifiably doing stuff that leads more and more and more that she is not probably ever going to be a WWE person. And she's doing it in such a way that makes it easy to support her. She's not alienating anybody. Like, I just think it's wonderful, you know?
I think there's a couple reasons for that. And without, telling tales out of school, it's pretty obvious as the owner of Mission Pro Wrestling, their goal is to elevate talent to the point where they get big contracts. Like, she's been very public about the fact that she wants to get as many eyes on the women who come through those doors and perform well. Mm-hmm. It would be against her best interest to make enemies at any of the companies, right? So
true.
You want to be able to open as many doors as possible with your name and your company's name. So, we know the Renegade Twins got a tryout at WWE. They posted on their social medias. Would that have happened if she was,
Zoe Stark?
Oh, Zoe Stark. Yeah, Zoe Stark. We actually interviewed Zoe like the week that she got signed with NXT. She was gone the week after. So, and that relationship happened through Mission Pro. So I think that's part of it. I also think part of the reason why the difference between Thunder and Britt is that Thunder has a grassroots like fan base. Britt has a manufactured television fan base, right? If Thunder shows up at whatever wrestling convention, I was at WrestleCade, dude, like in the big room, the only person who had a longer line than her was Malachi Black, and it was close. I was there, and for 5 hours, there were hundreds of people in line to meet her. Yeah. I saw big stars in there with like 10, 20 people in line. Her line was out the door, in the waiting area, and down the lobby. And it was like that all day. So there's obviously something there that the fans are connecting to. Britt, widely popular. She's got the DMD thing, all that stuff. But you notice she gets booed as soon as the DMD thing goes away, right?
Well, there's that. And plus, she was the first person ever signed, the first woman signed on AEW. Like you're right. It's completely manufactured. She is the AEW chosen one. And it's actually people like Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa that highlight that to the fans that want to see the competitive wrestling. Britt is on her way, but she's not on their level. And I think that a lot of people appreciate the level that Thunder Rosa has been able to get to and maintain without any backing. It's just who she is, man. She's just going to come out there and kick some asses. And when she wasn't sure if the wrestling thing was going to work quite right, she goes, I guess I'll get into a fucking cage. That's badass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, I might be able to be a ref. Looks like that might not happen. Looks like the wrestling thing's not taking off. I guess I just have to start getting punched in the fucking face as much as possible. Like, if that was your thought process, like, Christ, yeah, it's not a wonder because, with Britt, it was wrestling or dentistry. She gets to do both, which is nice, but there's no like, well, this wrestling thing's not working out, so I guess I'll go back to my dentist stuff. With Thunder, it's wrestling doesn't seem to be working out, so I'll do actual fighting and see how many punches I can take to the mouth. And you go, oh, fuck. It's respectable.
Yeah, and I mean, she's if you've had, for people who have had the opportunity to be around her, she's a force of nature. Mm-hmm. I don't think she ever sleeps. She's always doing something, whether she's home, on the road, in the hotel, backstage. She's got 3 things going on, 4 projects. If you subscribe to her new Patreon, she posts videos. She posted some yesterday. She's taking singing lessons. She's going to be recording a single. And she was out in LA a few weeks ago looking at opportunities, possibly out in Hollywood. And she is positioning herself across multiple platforms in multiple media forms to be a star, and just putting those irons in here and there. And I think oftentimes people, especially younger wrestlers, don't take that seriously, where my career might only be 3 or 4 years and then I'm out. You know, so what am I going to do when I'm 29 or 30 and the wrestling business is done with me? Well, Matt Cardona's like, well, I built a whole empire. Like, I don't need you guys. Like, I've done the thing. And I can go have fun and play in these other areas. And I you know, so yeah.
Austin Creed and G4, 100%. I'm gonna hit the chat real quick because we're missing a couple things. I don't think Micah think I'm ignoring him. Micah may be toxic as hell, but he's still a drinking buddy to the show. Micah says Moxley has surely done something with Bloodsport, right? That is correct. He did a match with Davey Boy Smith Jr., Harry Smith.
Yep.
Is that the only time he did something in Bloodsport? I thought he had 2 matches.
No, Mox fought Barnett.
Barnett, that's right. Yeah, Barnett and that. So he had the 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
at least 2. I'm not sure if there's more.
Yeah, and I mean, and my God, Josh Barnett is so good. He's one dude where he's a dude I want to meet. And he's one of the dudes who was in the audience during the GCW show, and I so badly wanted to go over there and just like get some kind of a selfie. But he had his hoodie up, and I wasn't trying to fuck with him. And
yeah,
you know what I mean? But it was like, oh man, I want to meet him. Also, I'm glad I met Thunder at the NWA show, because if I go out to GCW to see that show, it could be a shit show trying to meet her again. And some of my favorite memories of that NWA show include I was hanging out with a friend who was friends with someone backstage, and so we were kind of waiting for them to come out. And so we're just sitting in the lobby on the couches. And there was a while where like everyone had basically filed out, and it was just kind of like people kind of cleaning up and doing their thing. And to watch Thunder Rosa and rest in peace ? Just be big brother, little sister for a while was a really cool thing to watch. You know what I mean?
I do. In fact, like, they recorded a lot of that stuff on her vlogs. If you go back to her YouTube channel, they're shorter videos, but she said I talked to her last week, and she said go back and look at that stuff, because she posted a bunch of NWA content when they were doing some of the tapings, and the stuff with ? Is just brilliant. I was standing talking to her in ? right outside the doors.
Yep.
And she was trying to explain to him in character how to set up his merch and get signatures and take the money, and he wasn't understanding any of it. It was awesome. Like, that guy, man, yeah, rest in peace, ?
Yeah, 100%. And then the other thing Micah said, Danhausen's on Dynamite right now, which is cool. Danhausen's doing his thing. Like we said before, doesn't take a lot to support these people. Sometimes all you got to do is... Go ahead.
$3 or $5 on the Patreon, something like that.
Well, there's that. There's also, you could just not talk shit. Like, there's not, you can have both. Like, because we talked about it more last week, so I'll make it short this week. Danhausen is not a character that I absolutely love everything he puts out, but he is a performer that I respect on a high level. And seeing him sign with AEW was very exciting for me. Not because he's going to be putting out a ton of content that I'm excited to see, but because that dude has a grind and a work ethic that is refreshing to see. It's easy to support him and say, this is absolutely incredible. But so much of Twitter went out there and said, like, I don't like this joke. I don't like this joke. This isn't funny to me. So fucking what? You know how much stand-up comedy I don't like? But I don't fucking go on there and say, let me tweet at the fucking world that this person has shitty stand-up comedy. I knew some of these people before they were famous. It's really cool to see them being successful now. Whether they're funny to me now or not, doesn't matter half the time.
Yeah.
Just don't be a dick. And then Splinter Fox is saying this, and we'll wrap up the topic, I think. Splinter Fox says, I think... No, hold on. I had to scroll up. He had a bit more to say than I thought. Splinter Fox is resident troll. He keeps me grounded. So he says, I say Thunder Rosa wrestling career... Well, no, that's even more. Okay, I gotta say Britt is like a Charlotte Flair. In real life, she is a sweetheart and a grinder. Her schedule is crazy 9 to 5 than wrestling, than doing shows and cons. I respect her. Totally fair. He goes, I say Thunder Rosa's wrestling career will be a short-lived in a good way. She as well as a grinder, and I see her taking every opportunity that comes her way, Hollywood, singing, etc., but it's all to elevate her promotion. Yeah, I feel like she could be Randy Orton style long term, where highs and lows, but keeping it steady. Is that, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I do. So how do you separate the character from the person? I don't know Britt. I've never met Britt. I know Thunder. So my perspective is like she does everything possible to elevate the people she's in the ring with. Go back and watch all of her AEW matches. She's always trying to make the match good. Yes. Never get herself over. Like she always looks good in the match because she hits hard, she's snug, all that stuff. Her style is very engaging. But the people who have the long-lasting careers are the people who can take what the boss gives you and execute on it. Take myself out of the equation. You tell me what needs to happen in this match. I'm going to go make the most of it. I know she's that type of person.
Yes.
So,
on Wrestling Inc., they had an interview with AJ Styles. Nick Hausman had one for the Royal Rumble Media Scrum. Media Row, they called it. And I got to listen to that recently. And I think that is something that everyone is sleeping on. It's like 7.5 minutes, 8 minutes, something like that. And he throws some stiff shots that people are not paying attention to about, because Nick asked him straight up, there's a lot of people who've come through the company and done different things and been elevated and it hasn't worked. What would you say is your secret to success and all that stuff? And he goes, do your fucking job. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
He talks about exactly that. Taking what they give you and making it your own and bringing it to life. Not shitting on whatever they give you because you don't like it. It's not about whether you like it or not. It's about whether they want it or not. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you don't think like Heath Slater was kept on because he kept doing the best he could with what they gave him?
Yes, absolutely. I think Zack Ryder was there for so long because anytime they asked him to do a thing, they got that thing. You know what I mean? Like 100%. I think the reason EC3 didn't last is because I think that everything that they wanted him to do was a problem to him, and it showed. People put it out as like GIFs because they thought it was funny, where it was all like, here's EC3 on his debut, and here is now. You can tell he doesn't give a shit anymore, but you could see it. He comes out and does the entrance the way they wanted it, and he was all into it. And then like a week later, he does it, and he's like, Yeah. If you shit on it, they notice, because we notice. And if we notice, then they noticed before. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, 100%. Spinfox says, I feel she is having a lot of head injuries. Rosa, could be wrong though, but I see her vlog there, or sometimes she is not cleared to wrestle. I want her to be safe. I get that. I wonder that about Guevara. My understanding is Guevara's had like more concussions than Daniel Bryan's ever had. I wonder if his career is going to be a lot shorter than he expects, just because he feels like he can bounce back. I wonder if something's going to happen. Splinter Fox is in the chat because Daniel Bryan's on the screen. He doesn't like him, so he might jump out of the chat now. So, but I mean, like I said, Randy Orton has had highs and lows where he's very busy, not so busy, time off, time in, and I feel like the Thunder Rosa's got enough hands in the pot that her career could ebb and flow for a lot of decades without people really noticing. No one notices when Randy Orton takes time off. They notice every time he comes back. You know what I mean? He's really smart about it, and I think she's equally smart about it. I think she could have a very long career doing a lot of things that elevate a lot of other people. It's great. Let's talk Royal Rumble and the fallout, man. Chatting with you is fun and all over the place.
Tedious? Oh, sorry.
Tedious. That's the nature of the IWC dive bar. We're here to have a drink and just talk.
All right, you set that up. I'm going to get a refill.
Get a refill. Do you have a headphone in so you can hear my setup? I'm going to assume yes.
Yes, I do.
Okay, perfect. While he's getting a refill, I just want to lay this out. One of the things that people were saying about this particular Rumble, or before we go to that, last comment by Splinter Fox on this topic, I swear to God, Splinter Fox goes, Joey Janela and Rosa are the best wrestling scouts, hands down at the moment. Nobody can touch them too. I can't disagree with that. They are two people that if I were to start a promotion, I want Rosa, I want Janela, because I want someone to build my men's division and my women's division. But moving on to Royal Rumble, a lot of people are saying that they felt this was the single worst Royal Rumble of all time. And I couldn't disagree more. I've seen every Royal Rumble. I feel like that's coming from a lot of people who've been fans for a short period of time. I do take into account, and I believe other people do too, that Twitter is primarily like children. So you have a lot of people who are teenagers saying worst Royal Rumble ever, but they've only seen 4. With that in mind, the winners of the Rumble were Ronda Rousey and Brock Lesnar, which both people have been touted as being part-timers, which I also disagree with because, for one, Brock Lesnar has been on almost every Raw or every SmackDown since SummerSlam, has been on Raw several times since then. He showed up at almost every pay-per-view. That guy couldn't be less part-time. He is as full-time as it gets. He's more full-time than your champions. And Ronda Rousey, she's never shown any kind of desire to be a part-time talent. When she first came in, it was a solid year run, end to end. It was actually a little bit more than a year because it was Rumble to the following Mania. It was Rumble, Mania, next Mania. So 100%, I don't think of them as part-timers. I also think that the narrative here, that by Ronda Rousey and Brock Lesnar winning, that they gave it to part-timers and already established stars, and the Royal Rumble is meant to be star-making of moments, I think also lends to the fact of people who don't know the history of the Royal Rumble. I will say that there's definitely a lot of spots in the show that I want to talk about, but overall, the winners being Ronda and Brock, Front Row, what did you think about that?
So a couple things about that narrative. The purpose of the Rumble now is to build 2 competitors that are going to main event WrestleMania, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to try to fill a stadium with 100,000 people for 2 nights, you don't pick someone who's like a mid-carder. You pick the biggest names and the biggest stars and the biggest matches you can possibly put together to sell 200,000 tickets. It's a business strategy. Yeah. Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey are hands down the biggest names on the roster if they're both there. They're both household names. Charlotte Flair, as much respect as I have for her, I think she's one of the best in the world. Most people don't know who she is outside of wrestling.
True.
You ask anybody, go out on the road, go to the mall, ask anybody who Ronda Rousey is. They're going to go, oh, I know who she is. She's hugely famous.
Yes.
So why wouldn't you put someone who has proven that she can do the job? Maybe she needs some mic work. All right, fine. We saw that. However, you put that name on the marquee for night 1 or night 2 versus one of your big stars. That's what's going to sell tickets, because those people are going to go, well, when am I going to get a chance to see Ronda Rousey wrestle again? This might be it. She might do another 1-year full-time run and then be gone forever. I mean, I once bought a ticket to Raw just because I knew she was on Raw, because I actually wanted to see her in person. And she was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at the Raw after Royal Rumble 2019 where the crowd booed Ronda Rousey out of the building. She started to cry, and Bayley came out, saved that promo, and put on a fucking clinic of a match. Which, by the way, when I watched what they put on TV where the commercials were and stuff, I was like, are you out of your mind? Like, it was amazing. The crowd was so behind Bayley. But at the same time, I was booing Ronda at first, but I ended up sitting down and quietly saying to producer lady who sat next to me, I was like, this isn't fair. They're not being fair to her. Like, boo for sure, but they're booing on a high level fuck you. And I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Like, I felt bad for Ronda because I was like, her booking has made me want to boo her, but she is not a booable person, and you're booing like her. Like, it felt deep, dude. Like, the fact that she started crying didn't feel like a shock.
No, it just 100%. One more point on that. The people behind the scenes have said, and we knew it at the time, you have one of the most famous female athletes on the goddamn planet. And she wants to come here, and they said it in kayfabe, they said it in storyline, but it's also real. Like, she wants to come here and be part of this. Every person she interacted with on TV was made bigger just by being in the ring with her, whether the matches were good or not. Like, she lent her name to that women's division, and that's why, and Becky said it, in the Broken Skull sessions this weekend, Becky said we main evented WrestleMania because of Ronda Rousey.
Yes. Yeah. And it's about utilizing and taking advantage of those opportunities when you have them. She didn't have to be there. Ronda had nothing to prove to a wrestling audience at all. Yeah, absolutely, man.
The only other thing I wanted to mention that you talked about Brock being a part-time wrestler. Yes, I used to hate it when he would come, get the title, and disappear. Brock Lesnar hasn't wrestled a match on Raw since 2002 against Tommy Dreamer. Not one match in 20 years. He's been the champion of that show many times for hundreds of days and never wrestled on that show since 2002. Right. However, all of my criticisms were set aside when he returned this most recent time. This version of Brock is there every week. He's wildly entertaining. I never knew that he could talk like that on the mic. I don't think anybody needs to take the mic away from him ever again because he's awesome. So for him to be in the position that he's in now, run with it. Yeah. He's having fun, clearly.
I think that this iteration of Brock Lesnar is not telling of who he's become, but telling of who he's always been. The fact you hated him for not showing up, I honestly feel in my heart of hearts was by design. That dude is the last remaining Undertaker level kayfabe that we have. And I have felt that for a while. This guy, I think, didn't show up on purpose. I think defended the title as little as possible because he knew how much I got under the skin of the people. The idea that he, quote, didn't like the business and only did it for the money, that was leaked to the dirt sheets on purpose. You know what I mean? They needed people to hate him. And I don't think that anyone elicits a more visceral reaction in wrestling today than Brock Lesnar. I really don't. We all love Roman, and we cheer him when his music hits, and we boo him when he talks, because that's what we're supposed to do. If you want to go AEW, we cheer Adam Page when he comes out. We cheer MJF when he comes out, and boo him when he talks, because we love the guys that we love because we appreciate what they do. But that visceral reaction of fuck that dude, Brock's the only one who can elicit that at this point, I don't think.
Yeah, and alongside that, if you've ever been in the room when Brock's, not in like a room, but in the arena, when he arrives, the air changes.
Yep.
Like it's a different feeling in the room when Brock's there. We've had good seats, and I've been close to him as he's walked by. I've never spoken to the guy. But you know that you're behind the barricades, you know that you're a fan, but he's still terrifying. Yeah. Like he's terrifying on TV because you know that even a guy like Bobby Lashley, that dude is ripped, former Bellator champion. Brock could probably still take him. Like there's that so much reality with him that when he's in there laughing at people, it's real. It's not false bravado. Like this is a guy that could take anybody in the pro wrestling industry, probably.
Yeah.
For real. Yeah.
Dude. Yeah, I was at a Raw before WrestleMania. It was right before WrestleMania where Undertaker and Roman had their match. So it was at 30, I think, 33? 33, I think. That was during the run where he was Universal Champion, and everyone said he doesn't show up on Raw. And he's only been made this many appearances. Well, I was in the fucking arena a couple weeks before WrestleMania, and the dark match after the show was Big Show coming out saying he just happens to be here. He wants to have a good time. He'll face anybody in the back. Let's just have a match. And whose music kicks? Fucking Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar was on
a dark match?
Yes.
Wow.
Brock Lesnar comes out. It's like a 30-second. Brock just fucking cheesed him and F5'd him, took the fucking thing, and then he walked out, and he just walked away. He couldn't have been out there for more than 2 minutes. And it was the coolest fucking thing to see Brock do that. And then the whole thing became a joke between the referees trying to help Paul White, but they couldn't move him. He's so big. So one of the referees tries to pin him. The other referee's like going to count it. Paul White throws the referee off. It was hysterical. Great time. That's what we're here for, right? A good time. Brock Lesnar was doing dark matches during the run where he was making, quote, no Raw appearances. How amazing is that?
Yeah, that's amazing.
But the other reason you give those wins to Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey is those moments, those pictures. winning the Rumble, pointing to the sign. As you were talking about the star power of Ronda, I was thinking of who was the last couple winners. Ronda Rousey, we had Bianca, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and then Asuka. All of whom are not main event worthy, right? They were made a star by getting the championship, right? Becky Lynch, when she won the Rumble, I have 4 pictures of her winning the Rumble on my wall right now. Not to mention other Rumble stuff associated with it to begin with. It's the moment and feeling that, having that reaction there. Although I do think that the Ronda reaction, I don't think it's what they expected. You got to see Raw, right?
I just want to rewind to what you said before about the Rumble not being, about the purpose of it not making new stars. I will disagree from the perspective of within the body of the Rumble, stars are made. It doesn't matter who wins it.
Yes.
Right? There were so many stories told in that women's match. The interaction between Shotzi and Lita, which calls all the way back to Tough Enough, when Shotzi had to leave Tough Enough because she was injured and Lita was hugging and crying. The whole thing. There's a whole story there. There's stories with Melina and the other talents, and you've got where Nikki eliminated Brie years ago, and then now Brie eliminated Nikki this year as a FU. Like there's little stories and little moments, and even going back a few years when Keith Lee and Brock Lesnar faced off, Brock made him.
Yes.
Brock elevated him just by simple reactions to the way that he was in the ring with Keith. So I think within the body of those matches is where the real elevation happens.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to drive that out of us one way or another. Bianca Belair became a star in 2020, not 2021. It wasn't the win of the Rumble that made her the star. It was in 2020 when she had the most number of eliminations in a single match, and she was the dominant force of the Rumble. Who won that Rumble? Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair, as Vince McMahon likes to say. But the star of that night was not Charlotte Flair. Did anyone believe in 2020 Charlotte Flair needed that Rumble win to get to WrestleMania?
No.
Did anyone believe that Becky Lynch needed that Rumble win to get to WrestleMania?
No, Becky was bigger.
Becky was bigger than Mania. She's the fucking best. Charlotte can go to hell. But I'm just saying, like, the winner of the Rumble is not star making. And I'm even going to say so far as this, and we can kind of move on a little bit, but if you want to go through the Rumble winners, and I'll start it at Yokozuna because prior to that we have Duggan, Stud, Hogan, and Flair, which were not for a title match, except for Flair being for the title in and of itself. Yokozuna, Bret Hart, and Lex Luger both won, and they had their whole thing, which led to the WrestleMania 10 thing, which led to Bret Hart and Yoko. You had Shawn Michaels win 2 years in a row. I would say that Shawn Michaels winning the first one was potentially elevating him because he wasn't in the title picture yet. That was when he lost the Mania match against Diesel at WrestleMania that year. It was WrestleMania 11, and then the second year he won it again, and that brought him to 96 WrestleMania, which I believe was the Iron Man match. So I would say that Shawn Michaels winning the first time was potentially elevating him from Intercontinental Championship to World Championship, because he also, if I remember correctly, was the first in. Yep, he was position number 1 in the first one, and the last 2 were him and British Bulldog, who had just recently been fighting for the Intercontinental title. By him taking the Bulldog out, it was solidifying him that he's no longer in the Intercontinental title scene, right?
Yeah.
After that, you had Stone Cold win twice in a row. Do you think in 97 Stone Cold Steve Austin needed a Rumble win to become a star? 97.
Yeah, not so much.
We all remember 96 is when he cut Austin 316, right?
I never heard of it. I just started watching wrestling a week ago, so.
Never heard of it. In 99, Mr. McMahon won the Royal Rumble.
Yeah. Young talent. Big future.
Young talent, putting him over, making him a star. Ultimately, McMahon would lose that championship title shot 2 against Stone Cold, which would give 3 years in a row that you'd have Stone Cold having the championship title match due to Rumble in one way or another, right? Year 2000, The Rock. The Rock in the year 2000. I also venture to say that's the worst Rumble of all time. Because if you look at a list of the entries as they come in, you had Doink like 4 times. There was nobody coming in. The Headbangers came in individually. Like, ridiculous. It's just, the only star in that show besides The Rock was Big Show. And they were the last 2. And everyone else was a tag team or a jobber. Terrible. But it was what it was. Who wins in 2001? Stone Cold Steve Austin again. In 2001. Do you think that made him into a star?
It helped.
It definitely helped. Didn't hurt the situation. I'll run through the rest of them. Triple H, Brock Lesnar, Benoit, Batista, Rey Mysterio, Undertaker in 2007, John Cena 2008, Orton, Edge, Alberto Del Rio's a maybe, because I don't know enough about his career. But in 2011, Del Rio won, and I feel like that was an early year thing. Also 40-man Rumble for whatever reason. Sheamus is a maybe as well. I think he may have won Money in the Bank and gotten a title shot before, but that really pushed him over, I think. So I would say Sheamus and HBK are the only 2 right now that I'm willing to bend on. Then you had John Cena again in 2013, because who's that guy, right? Batista, Roman Reigns, Triple H in 2016, Randy Orton. Shinsuke Nakamura is a move.
Now that's an interesting one, because Shinsuke was a made star at that point.
True.
Globally and in NXT, former NXT champ, like all that stuff. However, he wasn't top of the food chain, so there's room to move.
Yes, absolutely. Shinsuke I would put on the list of made into a main event WrestleMania, where he was a star, but was he going to be a championship at Mania before then? Probably not.
Right.
That helped him for sure. After that, Seth Rollins in 2019. 2019, Seth Rollins wins it. Drew McIntyre, I would hear the argument, because prior to that Rumble, we kept saying, why is he not in the title picture? But at the same time, if the argument is why is he not in the conversation, then that means he's already earned his way there. Am I wrong?
So I don't think with Drew, I don't think he was already a big star. Like, he was an NXT champion. Like, he was already in the main event. He was already like a top talent. However, what I think that match did specifically was not winning it, but how he won. Again, it comes back to his interaction with Brock and the way that he took Brock out, the way that Brock sold for him, the way that, he interacted with people like Edge. It was, again, his elevation, even though he did win, like, his elevation came in his interactions in the body of the match, I think.
Yeah.
If he had just won, if he had just eliminated a bunch of people, I don't think it really would have done a lot for him. People were specifically talking about his performance in the match.
Okay. Yeah. But it gave him credence to be moved up.
Yeah. 100%.
So the argument could be made. Drew McIntyre. So we're at 4 so far out of 33. Where the argument could be made, but the argument could be won fledgling on some of them. But if the argument could be made at all, I'm giving the win to the argument, right? So it gives us 4 out of 33. 33. After that, we had Edge. Because Edge, in 2021, needed to be elevated to a main event status. After that, we got Brock Lesnar. And then for the women we've already talked about, you have Asuka, who definitely was a move for Asuka. Becky, Charlotte. Bianca was the solidification of a move. But
yeah. See, the problem with Bianca is she came in hot, like, on Raw with, a big splash, and she was put into a high profile matches early on, and then they pulled her away from TV for a little while and then sort of reintroduced her. So it was almost like the Rumble win helped to solidify, no, like, this is our person. Like,
yeah,
we're reinforcing to you that she's a big deal.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. 100%. She was a shoo-in to win because we knew that she already belonged there. And that's what I mean. That the idea of making a mid-carder into a main eventer is very rare, if ever. Splinter Fox in the chat a little bit says, I'm going to come back to this one in just a second. He goes, I agree. HBK winning the Rumble from the first time made him mid-card to main eventer. Love the old WWF, hate the new WWE. And he said, LOL, now you can't stand Drew, Marsh, Drew McIntyre. He goes, Bailey helped Belair. Bailey is the best, which is 100% true. Bailey got Belair ready to win that Rumble, and I will die on that hill. But all I'm saying is the idea that the Rumble is set to make someone into a star who's not otherwise a star has 4 out of 36 examples of potential argument.
Okay, so let's have the discussion that you look at the men's Rumble. Like, okay, we're hot on Damian Priest. I'm a huge fan of Damian Priest. His stuff with Bad Bunny, all the stuff they did last year, I'm a big fan, right? He wins the Rumble. He's going to beat Roman? I don't think so. At Mania. So now you've already got like your storylines blown out of the water for your biggest show of the year. You have to put somebody in a position coming out of that Rumble match where they are a credible, believable competitor for the top title in the industry, or at least in the company. Yeah. Right? Otherwise, what are we doing? You've elevated them. They won a scramble match, essentially. They're not championship material. They just threw a bunch of people over the top. It's not the same as going toe-to-toe with Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley. Pick a person, right?
Yeah. Which brings me to my next criticism that I've been hearing that doesn't make any sense to me. People said, just remember, just know. People just know that WWE did this because they're evil. Johnny Knoxville was in the Rumble, and so was Bad Bunny. But who was not in the Rumble? Finn Balor and Cesaro. I don't need to see Finn Balor and Cesaro lose another match.
Okay, but you got to look at this from a business perspective, right? They have almost always, or at least as far back as I can remember, and I haven't watched all of the Rumbles, there's always either a comedic or a celebrity spot. There's always something like that to make some fun. These two spots made a lot of sense to me because, first of all, Johnny Knoxville has a movie coming out. It's going to be a big popular movie, and they have a marketing contract with those folks to have a spot. However, Johnny Knoxville is also a trained stuntman. Johnny Knoxville is a guy that can get in there and take a bump, right? He looked perfectly fine taking a clothesline. He perfectly fine getting his ass kicked. That was just fine. Bad Bunny, we saw Bad Bunny like light the place on fire last year at Mania. He shocked everybody when he moved to Florida for 3 months to train for that match. And then he comes into the Rumble, takes an F5 from Brock Lesnar, sells like he's been doing this for 10 years. And he doesn't win anything, but his like hundreds of millions of followers saw him in the match. His last like 10 videos on YouTube did 6 to 8 billion views each with a B. So why don't you have that guy in there for a couple minutes? He can perform. He loves the business. He's going to promote the shit out of it. I will never throw, unless something happens from now, but I will not throw a flag on Bad Bunny being in that match.
Nor Johnny Knoxville. The idea that you called him a trained stuntman, I love it. Because,
I mean, he is.
I'm not saying he's not. But I'm saying that nobody else is saying that. And people have talked about his forearms being awesome. I think also part of that is this. Like, realistically, I think about even when I was in, like, and this is a dumb but notable comparison because if children can think this, so can adults, right? I was in a play in high school, and one of the spots was this girl was meant to slap me, and we were talking about stage slaps and how you can kind of like scratch something behind your ear, and they can kind of come around, and then you guys clap hands, but you do it as your head's turning, and then no one sees it, and I got slapped in the face, right? Well, the girl I was working with could not figure out that thing. It never worked. She couldn't get it timed right, and so it always sounded like weird nothing. So I told her, I was like, just fucking rear back and slap me in the face. It's no big deal. It's got to look good. I'm not going to let it look like shit or sound like nothing. So just fucking do it. Let my face turn red. People will think it's part of the show. It's fine. If children can say, hey, it doesn't look good if you don't do it right, so we're going to do it for real and just say sorry later, there's no way AJ's not like, hey, Johnny, take it easy on me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's like, no. We don't have time to teach you how to pull back at the last fraction of a second. So fucking hit me. Because you know what?
Yeah, AJ Styles AJ Styles has performed at the highest level in Japan against some of the stiffest motherfuckers on the planet. Do you think Johnny Knoxville's going to do any damage to him?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Not long term. Yeah. Go ahead. Make me sore for 20 minutes. We'll be fine.
Why do some of the best performers in the industry look so good? Because they're really hitting people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's amazing. So 100%. I don't think the part-timers won it. I think that it made sense. I think that if you put Finn Balor or Cesaro in there instead of Bad Bunny and Knoxville, I think you actually lose more in the Rumble than you gain. Because the idea, right, is that by that argument, you're fighting for kayfabe. At least I think they had a chance. You didn't. You know what I mean?
Right.
Balor,
I think where they went wrong was as soon as Brock's music hit, my brain went, "Oh, that's it. It's over." Like I don't need to buy into the outcome of this because I know it's going to happen now. In the women's
what they did
match,
right was they made him number 30, and it didn't drag on after that. He went in there.
No,
and
that's
did
true.
business.
That's very true. No, I don't have an issue with that. But I think folks knew that when he lost early, they didn't know. We suspected when he lost early on. My wrestling mind says, "Oh, he's just going to come back in the Rumble and get that spot back," and that's exactly what happened. It was not. And my only other criticism of the men's match is they didn't have the fun surprise moments that the women's match had, with regards to participants. Ronda coming back was a legitimate surprise for those of us that don't spend all our lives on the dirt sheets, because apparently they recorded it earlier in the day, but I didn't see it. So, and there were a few other nice surprises in there too. The fact that Mickie James came out with the Impact Knockouts title, labeled the Impact Knockouts champion, to her music, like I give my tip of the cap to WWE for making that happen. Whatever happened behind the scenes, I don't know. I'm not there, but as a fan, I'm like, all right, that's cool. Like you're seeing at least a little bit of cooperation there. And I thought, good for her. That was cool. And she was in there for a while.
Oh, absolutely. She did a fantastic job in there. Let's hit a few things real quick. We're going to have a couple side quests real fast here, front row. This is the dive bar after all, and everyone's been drinking, so it gets all over the place. It's a mess, but we'll figure it out. Jeremy in Time said about 20 minutes ago, he goes, Warrior Wrestling just announced, and I know you want to be here live for this announcement, Thunder Rosa will defend her title, the Warrior Wrestling title, against Athena, a.k.a. Ember Moon, on February 12th.
Nice.
How's that?
That's outstanding. I'm a huge fan of Athena / formerly known as Ember Moon. I've always loved her style. She's very, very physical, very technically sound. All her stuff looks really solid. You remember from our Zoom chats that I predicted her returning in NXT on the motorcycle. I was the one that guessed that. Yeah. I get no points or money for that, but I sleep better at night. So I think that's a matchup that I don't think we knew we were going to get, but now we need to see.
100%. The idea of that matchup is killer. The fact it's happening in Chicago and not Texas is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
If I had to venture a wild guess, I would have said that match would have happened in Mission Pro before it would have happened in Warrior, just strictly because they both live in Texas. If no other reason at all. But the fact that their first matchup's going to be in Chicago, to me, is crazy and awesome, because that means there's a title on the line. Immediately puts massive stakes on this return bout.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
Bishop in the chat says Warrior Wrestling has cards often. True. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think if you're bringing this level of competition to your cards, like you have to start talking about Warrior Wrestling as one of those companies that's bringing you opportunities for folks to work and also exciting stuff. I'm actually honestly very surprised at that matchup. That sort of came out of nowhere to me.
Yeah. I do want to say real quick, as a quick shout out, because I said I would, cheers and happy birthday to Nick Hausman. I neglected to know it was his birthday. I just saw it online. Happy birthday, Nick Hausman. Maybe not a friend of the show, but definitely a friend to us. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be doing all the stuff I've been doing in the podcast land. And a really good dude. Good dude who's done well by me, and I support him. And AJ Styles in his interview said that he actually Wrestling Inc.'s the only newsletter he reads at this point. So, shouts to them for making something out of it. So, cheers and a thank you to Nick Hausman.
Here's to Nick.
Here's to Nick. Spinner Fox says about that match, Athena versus Rosa. Wow, Warrior Wrestling beat everybody to the punch. Damn, Tony Khan dropped the ball. I love AEW and all, but Tony Khan don't know women's wrestling. Well, that's fair. Leah Moonlight coming through. Cheers, Leah Moonlight, if you're still around. Bishop saying, hey, guys. Anything else on the Warrior match?
I got nothing.
Yeah,
I didn't know about it till very now.
I just
Till
told you
exactly
about it.
right now.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm talking. Sounds great. Spinner Fox says, I agree. HBK winning the Rumble for the first time made him mid-card to main eventer. He says also, I love the old, don't know, He goes, man, I would love to see Bailey versus Thunder Rosa at least one time. Me too. I've heard that forearm shot that he gave AJ was like an NJPW strike. It was, dude. He goes, man, AJ and Bailey are the top wrestlers in WWE, hands down. You can't touch them. I can't argue that. They didn't need Brock to win. Big E is getting Kofi treatment, and it's sad to see. I didn't need Big E to win either, though. Here's the deal. The fact that people are saying should have been this person or that, people saying should have been Kevin Owens. I will give you this. On Raw, throwing Brock into the Elimination Chamber for the title definitely muddies the water to how excited I was about Brock winning or not, right? Does Brock need the win to challenge Roman? Kind of. He kind of does, because Roman's already said he didn't want to fight Brock. They had a whole promo where Brock come out with his title and said, let's do title versus title. Let's do this to give people what they want. And what was Roman's response? No. Not my idea. Not doing it. It's my show. I'm out. So by Brock winning, it forces Roman's hand. You don't have a choice in the matter, Roman. I get this match because it's mine. So there can't be a back and forth of will they, won't they. It is. But then putting Brock in an Elimination Chamber match, if he wins that to take the title right back off of Bobby, I'm going to be a little bummed. I'm going to be honest. What do you think?
Well, it goes back to the conversation that people keep having about unification of titles. And I think I'm of two minds. Like, I definitely think it confuses things when you have so many titles, but I also understand, like, there are two networks with two different shows and two different champions, or four if you include the women. Yeah. So when you decide to go, well, okay, we're going to unify the titles, and let's say Roman wins it all. Roman's now your Grand Poobah champion, whatever they're going to call their new goofy looking title. Where does he live? Well, he's on both shows. All right, well, now you've taken a top spot from one of the shows and given all of the spots to one guy or girl or, or woman, depending on who the champion is. Now you're also putting those people in a position where they now have to work every show. Whereas now they get the opportunity to go home and spend time with their family for a few days and come back. And I don't know, I look at it from a business perspective, and I don't see either network, USA or Fox, saying, yeah, we'll give up the title that's defended on our show. Yeah, why not? We only paid you $1 billion. we don't need a champion on our show. I don't think that makes good sense. And the whole storyline with Brock, it is very confusing. Like, I understand the stipulation and all that stuff, but it continues to put Brock in positions where he doesn't need to be, from a presentation perspective. It makes him less special if he's fighting at everything for everything. Next week he's going to be teaming up with somebody for the tag titles, if they can coexist.
Can they coexist? I agree.
Which, okay, it's hypocritical of me because now I'm complaining about seeing too much Brock. So
that's a good point. We got to pull back on that.
I know.
Let's see in the chat real quick too. Spinner Fox says Soho's wrestling. Be right back. He goes Athena Warrior beat everybody to the punch. Tony dropped the ball, like he's been doing with the women's. Can't book women's right. I don't think I can argue. Jeremy says, wonder how long this was in the work, especially since Athena's 90-day clause just ran out today. Either way, it'd be one hell of a match. Clearly, there had been discussions, man. That's the other thing about that whole prison thing and slavery thing. You get 90 days paid non-compete, which means for 90 days, you sit at home getting fully paid and planning your next move. You think that Karrion Kross released that video at midnight when his non-compete ran out because he filmed it 11:59?
No.
You know what I mean? Like, you're getting paid your full salary. That's fantastic.
This show isn't even live.
No.
We recorded like 2 weeks ago.
Easily weeks ago. It's just ridiculous to me, and especially with those narratives of slavery in prison. You're getting paid. And I know that there's the whole creative, I'm forced to stay home. No, you're being paid to stay at home and figure out your next move. I wish every time I lost a job that I had 90 days full pay to sort out my next move. You know how fucking nice that'd have been. The amount of jobs I've lost where it's all like, yep, not only are you not getting paid moving forward, we're not paying you your last check because we know you can't afford to sue us for it.
Damn.
That's happened. That happens to the rest of us in real life. So fuck every single one of you going out there trying to make me feel bad for you because you got fully paid for 90 days and oh well. 90% of you come back looking better than ever, fully paid with video vignettes on the other side. So fucking relax with the narrative there. Let's get a little chapped sometimes, front row.
I see this. Is it your seat? Do you need a new seat?
The seat sucks, man. I was 100 pounds heavier when I bought it. I destroyed it before I even could fit in it. Spin Fox says, I seen that Roman hit Brock with the title, and then he just looked at the title and tossed it. Roman didn't want the title. It means nothing to him. Yep. 90 days, as long as you don't mention it to the whole world, you can do a lot in 90 days. Dude, that's what I'm fucking saying. Who was it who showed up after their 90 days and was fucking twice the size they were when they left? I don't remember, but a lot of these guys work out and come hit in the scene looking incredible. Naya, I love how she told the E, F you, I'm not going to wrestle in the Rumble. I'm getting paid either way. I guess I don't know that part of the story. I know that she came out and said that she refused to get vaccinated. That's why she got let go. I guess maybe
I saw that.
Yeah.
I it's hard because when you see clips from an interview or even if you watch the interview, you go, I don't know this person. Like, I don't know what her situation was. That's her perspective on the events that happened. My experience with corporate life is that HR tends to be a lot more careful than that. They're very like calculated in their communications with employees, especially people who are out on medical leave. However, I don't work there. I don't know what their policies are or the procedures. The big companies that I've worked for 30 years would never say or act in a way that she's describing. So I don't know. Like,
I agree, but we are experiencing a thing that hasn't been experienced before. There are a lot of even like city jobs and stuff where they're releasing or letting go, whatever you want to call it, like police officers and stuff for not getting vaccinated. Like the idea that vaccination is becoming imperative for a job that involves the public, the precedent's been set. It's there. I want to say Walmart, and I thought, no, Apple's not, but Walmart fired a number of employees for not being vaccinated. And a lot of them gave them time frames. Like, it's not just a wrestling business thing, it's a business thing. There's a lot of companies that if you're not vaccinated because of your contact with others, they're not going to continue to employ you. And the precedent's out there. Whether it's right or wrong is a whole other argument, but the concept of could it happen is definitely out there.
Well, and the concept that it's a requirement is not exactly new. I'm 50, and when I was a little kid, I had to get vaccinated to be allowed into school in kindergarten.
Yeah.
So I currently work for a company that does some work with the government. Well, as a government company that has a relationship with the government, the entire company is required to be vaccinated. They give you a period of time. If you don't want to get vaccinated in that period of time, well, I'm sorry, you don't work here anymore. This is a government mandate. So,
exactly. Yeah, 100%. Let's see. Spinner Fox says in the interview that she said they asked her to enter the Rumble. And she said no in the Renee podcast. Oh, that's fair. I mean, hey, at the same time, no one's ever accused her of loving the business. But let's see. And he goes, I understand the non-vax with the businesses. If you get sick and you can't work to fellow coworkers. Yeah. No, it all makes sense to me. But those were the big things coming off of Rumble. I have a question for you because in here in the dive bar, one of the things we is notable fashionistas. We're big on fashion here. A couple of gears that were notable. Sasha Banks in the Sailor Moon outfit I thought was awesome, but I'm a 90s kid, so Sailor Moon was dope. I have a question for you about Lita. Because you grew up in the Attitude Era, you remember just as well as me that she would wear the thongs that were pulled up over her shoulders. Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
I'm like zooming in on pictures and stuff. I believe she did this in Evolution 2, and I made a comment about it. She's doing the same thing, is she not? But with effectively what we referred to in our younger years as granny panties.
Well, I think part of it too is like we aren't in the Attitude Era, and they have a much different audience and a much different production or a presentation of their product. And I think it would be disingenuous for her to come out dressed the same way. Okay. Even if she had exactly the same body, to come out and see all of the progress that like the Sailor Moon thing is Sasha. Like Mercedes in her real life likes to cosplay. Sailor Moon's a big deal to her. Yeah. Like all of that tracks with me. That's not someone putting an outfit in front of her and saying, wear this in the Rumble. That was, and her husband is the gear maker anyway. So
no, I agree. I wasn't trying to shit on Sailor at all.
No, but I'm comparing that to Lita, who wore a more appropriate outfit for someone who doesn't have the body of a 20-year-old. And that's no knock on her. She's in ridiculous shape, all that good stuff. But I think probably what she did was wear the best outfit that she could. Yeah, because even back then, she used to wear the thong, but she also had baggy pants all the time, right? Yeah. She would still wear those like parachute pant things. So,
right.
I don't know. I kind of get what you're saying.
Bishop says in the chat, looked more like a onesie, like a bathing suit. And that's what I was trying to figure out, too. Was it like a bathing suit that was kind of like high? It was really weird to me. And I felt like with her, I think she's in great shape. And I'm not even saying it's a body issue thing.
What's a body suit?
I just felt like I know that like she wore the thong up high before. You could also just wear the rest of the outfit without that and even just have even a Joe Boxer line right above the pants. It just, with using that much cloth above it, it looked weird to me. Where she could have worn everything but that one little piece, and it would have looked ostensibly the same. Like Lita dresses like a punk rocker, and her pants kind of sag a little bit, and you can see sort of the top of her underwear. It didn't have to be pulled up, and the fact that the fabric was so thick, I was like, is that like weird, like a lot of underwear? Like,
dude, I don't know. I didn't look that closely at her gear because it didn't stand out to me. It wasn't anything that I was like, oh, she's paying homage to her favorite band, or like a lot of the other people in the matches had gear that were specifically Rumble match gear. And I saw her came out and I was like, yeah, that's what she would wear in the streets. Like that's what I expect to see her out in public with, like just pants and a shirt and
drop the underwear a bit. Just let it go away. Yeah. It just doesn't need to be there at all. We're not doing it anymore. You've evolved. We've evolved. Just drop the underwear a bit. Spinner Fox in the chat says, it was a one piece, but who cares about her attire? She was still wrestling great. Marsh, please stop it. That's Spinner Fox.
That's actually a great point.
It was just one of those things where I was kind of like, I didn't need that. Could have gone either way. But the rest of it I thought was great. The women's match I thought was awesome. Dewdrop and Becky. My God. What a fucking battle they had against a sign on fire.
And that's the unfortunate thing, right? Like we had a friend of ours who was in our Discord over on the Nation's Corner Discord. She was there. She was sitting behind the sign up in one of the higher tiers. And she was posting videos. She's like, these poor women are out there killing each other. And the friggin' sign's on fire. They had to lower the sign. They had to clear out like 400 people. And the whole time the audience is looking at that, they're not paying attention to this match. And to Becky and Dewdrop's credit, they tried to do some rest holds. They tried to do some stuff to not, waste time and do big moves when nobody's watching. So I think it took away from the match. Unfortunately, they did the absolute best they could. I will not call her Dewdrop. She's Piper Niven to me. And the Piper Niven that I knew
disrespectful piece of shit
from Japan and from NXT UK. She's an excellent wrestler, and I'm happy that she's getting big matches with big people.
Yeah, she's doing awesome. Becky was killing it. That match was so good and so intense that Kevlar from our typical Wednesday nights, his wife texted me as they were watching it. And I found out later because I asked him about something that I told her and he hadn't heard it, so she didn't even tell him. She was so stressed out about Doudrop hurting Becky, she was texting me about it. She goes, "Oh my God, they're killing each other." She's like, "I'm so scared for her." But it was great. I mean, it was that good that it was notably that. And then when I said, "Oh yeah, the crowd's also distracted because the sign's on fire," she's like, "Wait, seriously?" Like, she was so into the match she didn't even notice the crowd wasn't into it, which is great. Absolutely great. Spin Fox says, "Bet you're going to talk about Becky's attire from Raw next." Oh yeah, that fucking kaleidoscope. She's a crazy person. It's fine. The other thing people had a huge problem with was Rollins getting a DQ victory. Did you have an issue with that?
No. So that match at the Rumble was hands down the best match on the card to me.
It was amazing.
Everything from the Shield entrance, which I did not expect and made me so ridiculously happy that he was getting under Roman's skin by using all his, like, through the crowd, the gear, all of it. I was like, all right, this is great. And of course, those guys went to war. I don't think the DQ victory is a problem because it's Rollins, it's his character. And the only thing I'll add to that is literally up until 2 weeks ago, I didn't give a shit about him at all. I think he's an amazing wrestler, one of the best. But the character was stupid to me. And for some reason, like 2 weeks ago, and especially in the ring with Roman this week, he added just enough Jared Leto, just enough where you're like, oh, now I'm getting what the influence is. And it wasn't just about him cackling, which didn't do anything for me. It was the subtle shift of the hips, and it was just the way that he was reacting to Roman. Like, if you go back and watch that promo segment, he leveled up from the previous week, and I connected with it. So now I'm on board.
I know a lot of people saying the Leto Joker, but I honestly got a lot of Heath Ledger Joker out of him. But I picked up on it right away. Like, his first interaction with Roman, I mean, not first ever, obviously, but on this particular arc, I went, oh shit, this is some real Batman Joker vibes. Like, where Batman's serious, like, fuck you, dude. You're not taking my city from me. And Joker laughing in his face and being like, oh, what's wrong with a little chaos? You know what I mean? Kind of concept where I was all like, oh shit. But I got a lot more Ledger out of him with the kind of dancing, moving around and laughing at nothing was more to me Ledger than Leto. But at the same time, in respect to both, Leto I watched one time on an airplane. The Ledger one I've seen probably 5 or 6 times. So I'm a little more familiar with that version than I am the Leto version.
For me, the Jared Leto version is all about the facials and the subtle eye rolls, not eye rolls, but like eye movement and the way that he pays attention to different things. So, I mean, you can see influences of both, but I kind of felt like I saw people pointing it out online, obviously, when this feud started, and it seemed like Seth was playing that character. And in the last 2 weeks, I felt like he had absorbed it, like he had made it his own version of it, like he had figured something out. For me, something clicked.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. I loved it. I thought it was great, and thought it was perfectly part of the story. My frustration comes from wrestling fans who think that a DQ finish is by definition not a story. That doesn't make any sense. Anytime someone goes, what, ended in a DQ finish, so that's all you need to know. It's not. There's a whole fucking story that got told here about Seth Rollins getting in the head of Roman Reigns, driving him to a point of insanity, where referee Charles Robinson's telling Roman, let go of the hold, and he's screaming back, he won't let me. Rollins is unconscious, but he won't let me.
He's so incensed that he can't focus on the rules of the match.
Yes.
Which is counter to Roman's entire character, where he's so focused, he's so cold and calculating, he never makes the wrong move, never steps the wrong way, and Seth just completely like unbalanced him, which I did think made sense in this story.
Absolutely. I think for this story, in this instance, perfectly done. Absolutely loved the finish in this. I understand. I got a little bit of frustration now with Brock being in the Elimination Chamber, but him losing the way he did, I thought made sense. Roman winning the way that he did, I thought made sense, or losing the way he did as well. The Elimination Chamber is the one that puts the monkey wrench in it for me, but yeah,
It doesn't matter to me because I don't watch the Saudi shows. So
I mean, if someone shows up on the next week on next Raw with a championship, it makes a difference regardless if you've watched it or not.
Oh yeah,
you got a new title on the line. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in the show that had a lot of people talking in a weird way. I didn't like how Bobby looked so weak, if I'm being honest, in the Rebel match.
well, and in the promo segment on Raw, like it's just thing after thing after thing with Bobby, and at some point you've moved away from sympathy to like apathy. So they've got to like make sure that at some point Bobby gets his just desserts, right?
That's a good point. He's got to look fucking tough at some point here. Let me see Rumble stuff.
Because I mean, Brock pretty much punked him out week after week.
Yes. Yeah, and then in the match, Bobby had a very strong opening segment of the match, but then 2 minutes in, it was all Brock. It was all Brock until Roman came in. So you have a champion who won without any reason on why for himself, you know?
Yep. I don't know if you're going to touch on this, but the biggest thing to me, the biggest miss of the night was how so my favorite feud in recent years was Ronda and Becky because of what the work that they did on social media, and to the point where fans really genuinely didn't know what was real and what wasn't real. They never pulled back the curtain far enough that you saw them interacting. You never saw them in the same place. Ronda was doing those videos, trashing the fans, but like in real terms, almost calling wrestling, all that stuff. Like everything they did in the lead up was just brilliant. Well, you come to this Raw and Becky's like, or Ronda's like, well, who am I going to pick? And they go back and forth and it's borderline boring. And Ronda's got these like lines and Becky is so many levels above her on the mic. She comes out as a real person speaking real words from her real brain. And Ronda has lines, and it was such a mismatch, and it made no sense to the point where I'm like, well, I don't even know if I want to see that match now. Right. And they didn't even bring up the fact that Ronda's shoulders weren't up. And then Lita comes out. I'm going, what are we doing here? Like, this is so weird.
Lita had a longer promo than Ronda. Ronda's was really flat. I was pulling it up right now. I rewatched it right before we went on live, too, because I was like, was it just me or was it flat? It was crazy flat. Like, the crowd was very unresponsive, and I would say understandably. But yeah, Ronda was like reciting lines that felt like a fucking poem. It didn't seem to quite hit, and it was really like a will I, won't I, but it wasn't a should I or shouldn't I, which I think is the big difference, right? Like, if she'd gone out there and, like you said, well, I could make right the wrongs of WrestleMania 35. My shoulders were never pinned for 3 seconds, and you all know that. You'd immediately go, oh, shit. And she goes, or I could make right and take that title off of Charlotte because I didn't get to pin Charlotte, and she's the bigger star of the two, if I'm being honest. Just talk some shit or something, you know? But she didn't. She was just kind of like, I don't know. And everyone kind of went, okay. Like, it was really weird and flat.
So
she came off like she was reading lines.
It's interesting because Ronda, to be fair, Ronda had a major speech impediment and an issue growing up, right? She didn't talk for the first few years of life, and she's always sort of struggled with. She had speech coaches and all that other stuff. So
that's why she got into judo.
Right. So but I've also seen her speak in real life when she's passionate about something. So I know it's there. We've seen it in the previous run she had against Becky. We've seen her go out there and cut a heel promo that we're like, oh shit, there it is. That's the person that we want to hate in this story. And I think that they made a huge mistake by giving her a couple of words and not letting her tell a story, because coming out of that match, I was way more interested in seeing Lita do something, and I'm not even interested in seeing Lita do something at this point. Like, I don't really care who Ronda picks as of tonight.
Yeah, I agree. Going into Raw, I thought it has to be Becky because the one match we were robbed of was Becky Ronda one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
Becky Charlotte one-on-one we got, although we didn't get the clean finish because it was the disqualification of Survivor Series. It was still a one-on-one match.
We were robbed of that match twice because Becky got injured for the first one-on-one, and then the match that should have been a one-on-one at Mania was a triple threat. So twice we've been robbed of that match.
Exactly. And we've never been robbed of Ronda and Charlotte. We've seen that. So to me, I was like, I need Becky Ronda one-on-one. I want to see what they can do together. But walking out of this promo, I was all like, I don't know. I guess I'll watch Lita. Like, it was really weird because I think also you have a ton of turf for Ronda to come out and say, like, I heard you guys cheer last night and I don't care. Because you don't care. You guys volley back and forth all you want. You loved me when I came out the first time, and by the time I was champion, you hated me. And by the way, I took the champion off of your favorite little goddess, and I kept it for a full year. You know what I mean? Like, she could have slammed a bunch of people, including the fans, but she didn't acknowledge the fans. She didn't acknowledge the fan reaction. It was a really weird, like, she was writing out a list at home with nobody watching. Should I? Shouldn't I? I don't know. Will I? Won't I?
Pick up some milk. Maybe I'll go to the grocery store.
Yeah, it was flat. It was flat and unenthusiastic, and I felt like at least let her dive in. And even if you're not going to have her give the match away and say you're going to find out on Friday, let her shit on the fans for a bit. Blow off some steam, you know?
I wonder if they saw the success that Roman had during the no fans era where he's able to come out and slowly and methodically and quietly speak and cut those promos and get better and better and better. Ronda doesn't have that luxury. She can't come out and be a quiet, angry heel because everybody, people are in the room expecting her to spit some fire. Like, she's this world-class fighter, legit. Like, she needs to talk some shit. I think she'll make a great heel. She just needs some time. I'm interested to see where it goes, although I don't care today who the decision is. However, I'm paying close attention to social media because that's where the magic happened last time.
Good call. And I agree where I don't care, but I do think there's levels of don't care where if she picks Charlotte, I'm going to care probably 200% less than if she picks Becky. Because I feel like I've been robbed of the Becky match several times, and I feel like I just am not interested in Charlotte doing the thing. However, I don't know that I think that Ronda Rousey came back to lose to put someone else over in a short period of time. So if she does pick Charlotte, it would be nice to see Charlotte take another loss at WrestleMania. Because she doesn't lose at WrestleMania.
Charlotte loses a lot, though.
But not at Mania, she doesn't.
Yeah.
Not often at Mania, at least.
Maybe that's the story.
Yeah. The only time she's lost, I think, at WrestleMania was that triple threat. She's won.
I said last week when we were on our Zoom call, I think that it should be Charlotte and Ronda, and you should tell the story of Becky and Ronda from Mania all the way to SummerSlam. That's a nice chunk of time where you can have all kinds of real life, have them show up in public together at shows, like whatever, like make people buy into this, because as of right now, it's a match on a card that's there because someone's getting paid. Yeah, I agree. And I do think that a proper good long build with Ronda and Becky could be great. Here's the other thing. A lot of people saying that they don't want Becky Ronda because they want Becky Bianca. I am not under the belief that Becky and Bianca are going to be done with their careers in the next 6 months. You know what I mean? Like, I think we have a lot of time to tell that story. So I'm in no rush to get it, but I do think that it's very possible Ronda's only here for 1 year. So I'm more anxious towards a Becky Ronda because I think that is limited time, where I think that we can circle back to Bianca at any time. Does that make sense? Agreed. Yeah.
No. Trent Fox says, calling it now, Paige Van Zant will be better pro wrestler than Ronda. She may have the major star power, but Paige fits more. I could see that. Yeah, I can't tear that one apart. There's a lot of star power to Paige Van Zant. Spin Fox says, "P.S. Man, how I hate Chicago, the real heel in AEW. Damn, hogging all the shows. F Chicago." I agree. My producer lady was talking about potentially uprooting us and moving to Chicago. She goes, "A lot of wrestling's happening out there." I was like, "A lot of AEW's happening out there." But there's other stuff. Other stuff, including Warrior Wrestling, which will have Thunder Rosa and Athena on February 12th, which you will not want to miss. There's only really, there's a few other things that happened really that we could talk about, but I think we're running low on time. The only thing I do want to say left is AJ Styles versus Rey Mysterio Jr. So happy we got to see that, and they absolutely delivered in a match that they didn't have to deliver on. I think both these dudes are wrestling like they're not sure when the end of their career is going to be, and they know that they may never touch again. This was their Mania match. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's interesting that we got that on a regular free TV.
Yeah, because it's a tournament or a qualifier match that, to me, that's one of the reasons why I love tournaments and qualifiers so much, is you have these opportunities where there's every possibility they were looking at the card like, you know what we haven't had and we have no reason to get to is Rey and AJ. Because there's nothing about either one of those characters that should ever make them intertwined storyline-wise. There's just none. But if we have...
it's interesting because when AJ came to WWE, we were like, oh my God, AJ and Shinsuke were great in Japan. We're going to get them in a WWE ring that's going to be amazing. When they finally had a match, it was a kick in the balls. Like there was shenanigans, and it was like, all right. There was so much hype around that matchup between two, highly sought after competitors. Then we come to this match, and we didn't even know we wanted this match. Like this match wasn't even a thing a week ago, right? Or 2 weeks ago. But yet this match was pay-per-view quality. If this main evented one of the lesser pay-per-views, I would have been thrilled. Some of the stuff they did, the reversal of the Styles Clash, the thing that Rey did, sliding out of the ring and rolling back onto his feet. Yeah. I've seen that gif 100 times. Like the guy's like what, 46, 48? Like AJ's mid 40s.
Yeah.
And they're both wrestling like they're 25. But with, psychology.
Yeah. They're putting out there, and it was amazing, man. I loved it because, like you said, there's no reason to have it other than, well, look, we need to have people. Like, think about this as just a creative conversation. Imagine you're creative WWE. We have 6 slots for the Elimination Chamber match. We need to have people fighting to get qualifications for that. And we need to have... So we're going to need 12 people who could believably be in the main event of a title conversation and have them qualify. What if we had an AJ and Rey to get us there? Because now we have 2 literal main eventers in a match trying to figure out who's going there, and then that's what we get out of it, and it was fucking phenomenal. I loved it.
Yeah, same.
One of the things someone said as a complaint was that Seth Rollins didn't have to qualify for it. I just wanted to throw this out there as a quick thing, and you tell me if my head's way off. Someone was complaining online that Seth didn't have to qualify even though he didn't win the championship at Rumble. Here's how I see that play out, and I'm going to make it quick. Seth did a favor to Adam Pearce by coming from Raw to SmackDown to challenge their champion because they didn't have a contender for him. Seth was then cheated out of the title but won the match. So now that he's back on Raw and no longer doing a favor for Adam Pearce on SmackDown, Adam Pearce does a make good by putting him in a number 1 contender spot at the Elimination Chamber. I'll give you a shot at this title because you're not a permanent fixture at SmackDown. You are a Raw talent. I can't just have you continuously going back to SmackDown for that title, even though you got screwed out of the title but won the match. Is that kind of how you saw that play out?
I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know that came across clearly on TV.
Okay.
And not to me, but then again, I kind of half watch Raw sometimes, so.
That's true. That's true. And I loved Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins' whole segment together, and Kevin being like, here's what you do is you tell him you're out of the match if you don't. He's like, Wonderful. But that's how I saw it. He did a favor for Raw, or he did a favor for SmackDown, but he is on Raw. Yes, you won, but yes, you were screwed. Yes, you would otherwise get a rematch there, but because you're not a SmackDown talent, I can't just keep feeding you to SmackDown. So I'll give you a title shot here and put you in that match, and it makes sense. Win, win, win. That's how I feel.
Agreed.
Anything else that you want to throw out there before we wrap this one up?
No, man, I just I appreciate you having me on the show tonight. I'd like folks to, go over and check out our channel as well, youtube.com, the Nation's Corner on Twitter. We do a show every Saturday night at 7, usually 7 to 8. We've got a couple of good interviews coming up. We've got Hernandez this week, Taylor Hendricks the following week, and we're going to be recording Viva Van in a week or two, and some other ones that aren't confirmed yet, but some really fun stuff. To go support Mission Pro as well.
And Nation's Corner is more than just a wrestling podcast, right? You guys also do a show about other sports as well. Is that correct?
We have a sister show, the Our Nation Sports Show on Tuesday nights. They just moved, the folks that do that show, Tuesday nights at 7 on our YouTube channel as well.
So it's awesome. So being semi-affiliated, not affiliated, because we say sponsored, not sponsored on this show, affiliated, not affiliated with Busted Open, you guys do end up getting some pretty high-profile guests at times, and you do branch out beyond just the indie wrestling atmosphere into main shows like AEW, WWE, but also other sports as well. You guys also have a Discord, which is pretty active, of a bunch of people in that community talking about those things as well. So go follow @Nation's Corner on Twitter to get a bunch of those updates, and find that YouTube as well. Am I missing anything?
No, I think that's it. Appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. Really enjoyed having you on. We were in a bit of a bind, as you could tell. Neither Sportsbeard nor Kevlar could make it today. It is Kevlar's son's birthday, so happy birthday to baby Kevlar. Happy outing to Sportsbeard, who's in Vegas for the first time ever, so he's having it up out there. He told me a couple times, I'm going to try and do the show from the hotel, and I was like, dude, I think that you should just probably enjoy Vegas. Like, you've never been there. Like, just do it.
He's gonna wake up at 4 a.m. and go, oh, I forgot to do the show.
Yeah. Oh, I could have done it. But give them a follow @PW Front Row, @Nation's Corner. We are at WOTR the show, and I am at Ref Marsh. And we appreciate every one of you coming through and being our drinking buddies tonight. Give us a like, subscribe, follow, rating, all of them things. Guys, that's last call. We'll be back here in the dive bar of the IWC tomorrow night to talk all things AEW and NXT. And we're going to be hitting on some GCW. So we'll see you guys tomorrow night. That's last call. Cheers.
Hey, producer lady here. Thanks for or buy us a drink by following and putting the I in subscribe on Twitch. Or subscribe and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us. Cheers!
I would never have a drink with wrestling on the rocks.